Everyone knows the heavy hitters like Batman, Superman, and the Flash. They're the untouchable icons who take all the credit for saving the day. But the grunt work and the thankless missions almost always fell to the sidekicks. Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad spent years living in their mentor's shadows, basically serving as interns in tights. But there comes a time when any intern gets sick of being treated like a kid. And it was out of this rebellion that one of DC's most mature animated series was born. The focus of our video today is Young Justice. Think of a Black Ops team handling the dirty work the Justice League can't officially take on. And trust me, the plot goes way beyond your classic heroism. The show dives deep into conspiracies, lab-grown clones, genuine trauma, and gut-wrenching betrayals. If I had to sum up the core of this show, I'd say, growing up is hard enough, but it's an absolute nightmare when your biggest heroes lie to your face. So today on the channel, Young Justice. A group that proved true heroism takes the courage to clean up the messes the adults swept under the rug. A quiet day in Gotham Park turns into chaos when Mr. Freeze decides to freeze civilians. But before anyone turns into a popsicle, a throwing star shatters the villain's glass dome. It's Robin, accompanied by Batman, securing the knockout. Things are literally chilling all over. In Star City, Speedy and Green Arrow take down Icicle Jr. In the middle of the ocean, Aqualad and Aquaman handle Killer Frost. Meanwhile, in Central City, Kid Flash loses patience and snatches Captain Cold's gun before the Flash can even deliver the final punch. The catch? All the sidekicks are anxious. They keep repeating that today is the big day. They finally arrive at the Hall of Justice. But the glory is short-lived. The mentors decide to hold a closed-door meeting, leaving the kids out. Speedy, furious at the lack of respect, drops a bombshell. The Hall of Justice is just a tourist front. The real headquarters is the Watchtower. Enraged, he turns his back and walks away. Shortly after, the adults leave to deal with a magical threat and tell the remaining three to stay put. Naturally, they don't listen. Frustrated, Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad decide to investigate a fire at Project Cadmus on their own. Arriving there, they enter the burning building, save some scientists, and discover a bizarre express elevator. The descent takes them 26 floors underground. What was supposed to be a simple fire turns into a freak show featuring creatures called Genomorphs, looking like a secret lab straight out of Area 51. The head of the facility, Dr. Desmond, doesn't appreciate the visit and uses a telepathic creature to mind control Guardian, the head of security, forcing him to attack the boys. Robin, always with a plan, hacks the elevator and they descend even deeper. Down there, they find Cadmus's secret weapon, Project Kiar, basically a Superman clone. The three try to call the League for backup, but there's no signal. Before they can free the boy, the creatures take control of the clone's mind. And despite being highly trained, the trio gets brutally beaten and passes out cold on the lab floor. Dr. Desmond updates the Cadmus suits on the break-in. The order from the higher-ups is cold and direct. Clone the boys and dispose of the originals. Robin, Aqualad, and Kid Flash wake up trapped in pods. In front of them stands only the clone, staring at them in absolute silence, until a voice echoes in their heads. Superboy can speak, or at least transmit his thoughts. He reveals he has never seen the light of day. Everything he knows was force-fed into his brain by the lab's telepathic creatures. They try to convince Superboy that the outside world is worth it, even promising to introduce him to Superman. But Desmond shows up, ruins the conversation, and sends the clone back to his tube, initiating the painful process of copying the hero's memories. Pushed to the limit of his pain threshold, Aqualad sends a telepathic message to Superboy. What would Superman do? That's enough to strike a chord. The clone returns, beats down Guardian and Desmond, and frees the crew. The escape is far from easy. Superboy learns the hard way that he can't fly like the original, which is a massive reality check. The group climbs through elevator shafts and air ducts, dodging an army of Genomorphs. At sub-level 1, escape seems guaranteed, until they run into locked doors, and Desmond corners them once again. Realizing he has lost control, the scientist drinks a bizarre formula, Project Blockbuster, and transforms into a giant, mindless monster. The brawl is brutal. The beast is much stronger than all of them combined. Robin then devises a strategy. While Kid Flash distracts the monster, the others destroy the support pillars. The entire ceiling collapses, burying Blockbuster under tons of concrete. The dust settles, and the boys emerge from the rubble unscathed. Superboy finally looks up and sees the moon for the first time, but the view is cut short by the arrival of the entire Justice League. Superman is visibly uncomfortable facing his teenage clone and walks away without saying much of anything. The tension is incredibly thick. Batman gives them a monumental scolding for their disobedience, but deep down, he recognizes their potential. The result? The teens are given the League's old secret base. Martian Manhunter introduces his niece, Miss Martian, and thus, the team is officially born.
Miss Martian.
Hi.
Liking this gig more?
And as the dust settles, the Cadmus bosses smile in the shadows. For them, losing the clone was just a new opportunity. At the docks, Speedy, who now prefers working solo, foils the plans of a smuggler named Brick. Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad show up to lend a hand and try to convince their friend to join the new team. Speedy not only refuses, but calls the group a joke, and a little club designed to keep them on a leash. A teenage rebellion straight out of the Breakfast Club. Back at the mountain base, the vibe is purely boring. Red Tornado, who is now their supervisor, tells the kids to socialize instead of looking for missions. Kid Flash takes the opportunity to flirt with Miss Martian, who offers to give them a tour of the cave. The newest member is also trying to fit in, but makes a mistake. She tries to be friendly by communicating telepathically, which triggers Superboy's worst traumas. He hates mental intrusion thanks to his time at Cadmus and snaps at her. Wally and Calder explain Earth's etiquette rules to the Martian, who is left mortified. To break the ice, Miss Martian takes everyone to see her bioship, an organic spacecraft that can turn invisible. Finally, Red Tornado assigns them a secret mission: investigate a problem at a power plant in Happy Harbor. Arriving there, they come face to face with Mr. Twister, a guy manipulating the wind who tosses them around like ragdolls. Megan tries to read the villain's mind and finds nothing. The group's conclusion? Twister is actually Red Tornado testing them. That theory falls apart quickly. The villain tries to fry them all with lightning. Miss Martian manages to save the team by hiding everyone with the bioship, but Superboy, still furious, dumps the blame for the entire mess squarely on her shoulders. They leave her behind and jump back into the fight. Left alone, Megan connects the dots. If Twister has no mind and controls winds, he's also an android. She uses the bioship, shapeshifts to pretend to be Red Tornado, and with the help of Wally's super speed to create fake winds, completely fools the villain. The team destroys the android through sheer force and electrocution. A man falls out of the armor, whimpering. Without blinking, Megan lifts a massive boulder and crushes the guy. The scene shocks everyone, but she casually explains that he was a robot too, since he had no mental activity. From afar, the real villains celebrate the test's success. Back at the base, the group realizes that having an emotionless robot as a supervisor has its perks. He lets them solve their own problems, and Superboy finally swallows his pride and apologizes to the Martian. Down in Santa Prisca, the Cobra cult has taken over a venom factory. Bane, the original boss of the turf, tries to take back control through brute force. He injects his classic dose of steroids and goes after a scrawny guy, but the cult injects a bizarre new mixture into his opponent. The scrawny guy turns into Mammoth, a colossal monster who gives Bane a humiliating beatdown. Meanwhile, Batman sends the team to investigate the island to figure out why the drug's global distribution has stopped. And there's a catch. He didn't appoint a leader, leaving it up to them to decide. You can already imagine the mess. During the stealth drop, Superboy refuses to use active camouflage tech because, of course, he doesn't need it. Right off the bat, Kid Flash stumbles into a shootout between Bane's thugs and the cult. The entire team has to intervene to save his skin. Robin and Kid Flash spend more time arguing about who should be in charge than focusing on the mission. That's when Bane steps out of the shadows and offers a secret passage. Miss Martian reads his mind and warns them it's a setup, but in heroic logic, the enemy of my enemy is my tour guide. Inside, Robin and Kid Flash sprint ahead to prove who's best, and discover that the new drug is a mix of venom and the blockbuster formula. The mysterious buyer arrives by helicopter. It's Sportsmaster. Bane does what villains do best and betrays everyone, forcing the team to fight Mammoth and the cultists to create chaos. It's a complete tactical disaster. They have to retreat, and Robin finally realizes he isn't ready for leadership. He passes the baton to Aqualad, who organizes the team with the calm of someone who deals with rough seas every day.
The one we all do.
Hello, Megan. It's so obvious.
Then I accept the burden until you are ready to lift it from my shoulders.
During the escape, Bane tries to blow up the exit to force the Justice League to intervene, but gets knocked out cold by Superboy. With Aqualad in command, round 2 of the clash is a whole different story. They act as a unit. Sportsmaster escapes via parachute before his helicopter is blown up by Miss Martian, destroying the entire factory in the process. The cult flees, Bane is left tied to a tree, and the team finally understands what teamwork looks like. Back in civilization, Metropolis traffic turns into a nightmare when a suspension bridge gives way. Superman shows up to save the day, and Superboy tries to help, but ends up shaking the entire structure. The Man of Steel has to clean up the kid's mess, and gives him a cold dressing down. It's clear that Superman has the emotional depth of a brick wall when it comes to dealing with his own clone. At headquarters, the mood doesn't improve. Black Canary arrives to lead a combat training session, and Superboy hits her with the classic arrogant line, "I have super strength, I don't need technique." Her response? 2 takedowns that leave the kid face first on the floor. Furious, he storms out of the class. But there's no time to pout. Batman informs them that the League has dismantled Amazo, a bizarre android built by Professor Ivo that copies superpowers. The team's mission is to escort the trucks carrying the real parts to the labs, while the League acts as decoys. The trip is going smoothly until they get attacked by robotic monkeys. Yes, little metal apes popping out of nowhere. Kid Flash's squad quickly loses control of the cargo, and Superboy, true to his rebel phase, ignores the comms and jumps to the neighboring trucks, thinking he can punch his way out. The result? The robots get away with the parts. Robin tracks the signal to Gotham Academy, his own school. There, Superboy has already clashed with Ivo and the reassembled Amazo, and the android shows no mercy. He uses Superman's strength to mop the floor with Superboy, Robin, and Kid Flash. At the last second, a mysterious arrow flies out of nowhere, forcing Amazo to use Martian Manhunter's intangibility to dodge, which makes him drop the speedster. Seeing that brute force doesn't work against a machine that absorbs brute force, Superboy finally uses his head. He attacks the cowardly scientist, forcing Amazo to shift focus and act purely on defense. By the time the robot turns tangible again to protect its master, Superboy's fist is already in its path. The android's head explodes. Back at the base, Robin accuses Batman of sending Green Arrow to babysit them because of the arrow. The surprise comes when they find out the arrow actually belonged to Speedy, acting on his own. The lesson lands, and Superboy swallows his pride, returning to apologize and resume his training with Black Canary. Speaking of Speedy, he now goes by Red Arrow, and has fully embraced his solo career. He infiltrates a League of Shadows base and rescues Dr. Serling Roquette, the creator of a nanotech weapon called the Fog, which disintegrates everything in its path while stealing data. Meanwhile, Kid Flash walks into HQ all geared up for a beach day, trips, and face plants on the floor. To make matters worse for his dignity, the scene is witnessed by the team's newest member, Artemis, introduced as Green Arrow's niece and protege. Red Arrow shows up unannounced, sees he's already been replaced, goes off on everyone, and storms out, refusing to help with the Fog case. With the weapon on the loose destroying labs, the team splits up. Robin and Superboy go after the Fog's target, while the rest protect the Doctor so she can finish a neutralizing virus. And of course, Artemis and Kid Flash spend the whole time bickering like teenagers in the backseat of a car. The safe house doesn't last long. The assassin Cheshire breaches the perimeter with poison darts. Aqualad tries to play tough by resisting the venom, but the assassin is too agile and manages to escape using flashbangs when the team corners her. They move the Doctor, but the League of Shadows sends backup, Black Spider and Hook. Miss Martian disguises herself as the Doctor to lure Cheshire out, while the real Roquette works at an internet cafe guarded by Aqualad.
I've almost got it.
The plan half works. Kid Flash and Miss Martian handle the henchmen, but Artemis takes a technical beating from Cheshire in hand-to-hand combat. The assassin finds the cyber cafe, drops Aqualad with more venom but arrives too late. The Doctor has already uploaded the virus. Across town, Robin uploads the code to the Wayne Tech network, destroying the Fog in the nick of time while Superboy handles Professor Oho with his fists. During the getaway, Artemis shoots and knocks Cheshire's mask off. The two exchange a look of deep recognition, and Artemis Artemis simply lowers her bow and lets the assassin walk away. When the group regroups, she lies through her teeth, claiming she didn't get a look at the villain's face. The team welcomes Artemis with open arms, but the peace doesn't last. In a dark alley, Red Arrow corners her. He tells her straight to her face that he knows the whole Green Arrow's niece story is a complete sham. He decides to keep the secret out of respect for Batman and Green Arrow himself, but leaves a stern warning. If she betrays his friends, there will be hell to pay. Old Kent Nelson just wanted to talk to his late wife Inza, but ends up falling for Madame Xanadu's cheap parlor tricks. Before he can laugh any harder at the hidden wind machines, Abracadabra appears out of nowhere and kidnaps him. Over at the cave, the vibe is all about intense training and teenage gossip. Superboy finally takes down Calder, while the girls speculate about who should date whom. The downtime ends when Red Tornado alerts them to the disappearance of Kent, who used to be Dr. Fate, guardian of an absurdly powerful artifact, the Helmet of Fate. Wally, being a card-carrying skeptic, thinks magic is just science in disguise, but plays the part of a true believer just to impress Miss Martian. The team heads to Salem, and the Tower of Fate only reveals itself after Calder takes a leap of faith and unlocks an invisible door. Inside, Wally's attempt to fake a belief in mysticism almost costs everyone their lives in a lava pit. Magon, desperate, drops the truth bomb about why they're there, and the trap dissipates. Calder reads Wally perfectly. The speedster clings to science because he's terrified of dealing with something he can't control. The group splits up, and Wally and Artemis end up finding Kent. The old man gives it to them straight. Kadabra is just a charlatan with tech tricks, but Clarion, who's also there to steal the helmet, is a real lord of chaos. Things get ugly at the top of the tower. Clarion strikes Kent down. With his dying breath, the old man raises a force field and begs Wally to finally believe in magic. Left with no choice, the speedster puts on the helmet. The boy's body is taken over by Nabu, the true Dr. Fate, who lays a beatdown on Clarion and exposes Kadabra's gadgets, leaving the villain primed for a knockout punch from Superboy. The problem is, Nabu doesn't want to give Wally's body back. To save the kid, Kent's soul makes the ultimate sacrifice. He gives up reuniting with his beloved Inza in the afterlife and chooses to stay trapped in the helmet to keep Nabu company. Back to normal, Wally keeps the helmet as a souvenir and, maintaining his legendary stubbornness, continues to deny that magic exists. The guy even goes so far as to invite Miss Martian to a magic show just to prove his point. The team takes a humiliating beating from Clayface, and Batman has to step in like a disappointed dad picking his kids up from the police station. He dismisses everyone but pulls Aqualette aside for a serious talk, giving him an ultimatum. The boy needs to decide once and for all between playing hero on the surface and his life in Atlantis. Calder heads down to the ocean floor and immediately invites Tula, his childhood friend, to a royal dinner. The event is purely a celebration, with Aquaman and Queen Mera announcing they are expecting a baby. Meanwhile, we follow the civilian side of the rest of the team. In the cave, Superboy and Miss Martian share a moment filled with romantic tension in the middle of a messy kitchen. Dick Grayson takes his frustration out by punching a wall until Bruce Wayne invites him for a game of hoops.
What's this?
Training.
Artemis, on the other hand, receives a full scholarship to the prestigious Gotham Academy, funded by Wayne Enterprises. She tries to decline but ends up accepting when she sees her mother's tears, realizing that playing vigilante at night isn't going to pay the family's bills. In Atlantis, Aqualed's romantic hopes sink fast. He gathers his courage, tells Tula he's going to leave the surface for her, only to hear that she's already dating Garth. The guy's heart turns to dust right then and there. But there's no time to mourn. Black Manta detonates a bomb in the city to steal a bizarre starfish from the science center. Chaos ensues. Kaldur has to swallow his heartbreak and fight alongside his rival against the invaders. Garth proves his worth, summoning an immense power that neutralizes Manta's target, forcing the villain to flee empty-handed. After the battle, Kaldur gets the message. He bids his friends farewell with his head held high and returns to the cave, assuring Batman that he is now 100% focused on the team. Officially taking the mantle of leadership, he immediately starts assigning coordinates for a new mission in the desert. Far away, Black Manta reports his failure to the Lights Council, only to be praised. Apparently, the destruction was exactly what the bosses wanted all along. Miss Martian wakes up in the middle of the desert with absolutely no idea how she got there. Before she can even get up, a totally feral Superboy attacks her. He doesn't speak, he just growls. She uses telekinesis to defend herself, and the boy retreats into the dunes. The blackout wasn't exclusive to her. Robin is also lost, and when he checks his wrist computer, computer, he realizes he's missing 6 whole months of memories. Kid Flash and Artemis are going through the same ordeal. The Archer even thinks the speedster is a target her own father sent her to eliminate. Slowly, the Martian manages to track down and reunite the group. She enters everyone's minds to restore their memories up to the point of the total blank. They were in Bialya, following orders to investigate an energy spike. Soon, the group remembers that Aqualad was with them too, and they find him unconscious and nearly dying of dehydration. Despite their leader's medical emergency, Miss Martian warns them that Superboy is the real ticking time bomb, since he literally only has 6 months of life experience. Losing his memory reverted him back into the mindless weapon he was in the lab tank. She infiltrates the enemy base and finds the boy being tortured alongside a bizarre technological sphere. But it's all a trap set by Simon, the sinister telepath who fried the team's minds the day before. Simon attacks the girl, and the two engage in a heavy psychic war. Meanwhile, the sphere reacts to Superboy's pain, goes berserk, and frees him. He makes physical contact with Miss Martian, gets pulled into her mental landscape, and has his memories restored. With the Kryptonian psychological backing, she turns the tables and expels Simon, creating a psychic tornado that blasts the villain across the camp. Back in reality, the two almost kiss, but are interrupted by the noise of the technological sphere. Superboy immediately decides he's adopting the machine, treating it like a giant stray dog. Aboard the bioship, the sense of relief is broken by Aqualad, who wakes up completely confused because they forgot to give him his memory back. At least Kid Flash gets a consolation souvenir, the round sphere rolling freely around the compartment. Far away, Simon informs the Light that he lost the clone and the sphere, but the villainous leadership doesn't care. The mass blackout proved that their new mental system works perfectly. Amidst a peace summit between the two Relasias, Red Arrow is on the roof playing the invisible bodyguard. He intercepts the assassin Cheshire, who tries to blow up the event's neutral arbitrator's car. When the target steps out of the vehicle unscathed, surprise, it's Lex Luthor. He plays the diplomat, arguing that a united Relasia is much more profitable than one at war. Red Arrow doesn't buy the good guy act and turns down Lex's money, but decides to investigate anyway. While the political scene heats up, Superboy and Miss Martian face an even more terrifying challenge. Their first day of high school, adopting the names Connor Kent and Megan Morse, they try to blend in.
Hi, we're new. I'm Megan Morse. This is Connor Kent.
Right off the bat, Connor almost gets into a fight with a kid named Mal Duncan over a Superman t-shirt, proving his patience quota is still deep in the negative. Back to espionage, Red Arrow tries to get information out of Cheshire in jail, but the criminal not only flirts with him but also escapes flying through the air thanks to an explosion caused by Sportsmaster. The chase leads to the headquarters of the League of Shadows, where Ra's al Ghul himself makes it clear he doesn't want peace at the summit. Red Arrow is cornered, thrown into a river, and left for dead, except he survives and crashes the summit alongside Aqualad. Cheshire infiltrates Luthor's tea ceremony disguised as a waitress and kicks a bomb-laden cart toward the leaders. Aqualad uses the water from the fish tanks to create a shield, and all hell breaks loose. In the middle of the brawl against the assassins, Sportsmaster drops a much heavier bomb on Aqualad's lap. He claims there is a mole inside the hero's own team. Before Aqualad can process this, Red Arrow blasts the ceiling sprinklers. With plenty of ammo, the Atlantean conjures a water snake and wipes the floor with the villains. In the end, the summit is a success, and Relasia is on track for reunification. But the real masterstroke happens behind the scenes. Luthor and Ra's al Ghul have been working together all along, securing yet another territory under the control of the mysterious organization known as the Light. Batman sends Superboy and Miss Martian on an undercover mission to Bel Rev, a maximum security federal penitentiary run by Amanda Waller. Disguised as the evil terror twins, Tommy and Tuppence, they wear shock collars around their necks to blend in. The goal is simple: find out why ice villains like Mr. Freeze and Icicle Sr. allowed themselves to get caught just to end up inside. In the men's ward, Superboy shares a cell with Icicle Sr.'s son, Icicle Jr., a kid suffering from chronic daddy issues. The irony isn't lost on Superboy, as he knows exactly what it's like to be ignored by the guy you look up to. During a therapy session with Dr. Hugo Strange, Miss Martian even uses this real wound of Superboy's to maintain their cover tougher, making the boy genuinely angry. It doesn't take long for the villain's true plan to come to light. Mr. Freeze subdues Waller, disables the inhibitor collars, and the prison descends into an absolute chaos of ice and brawling. Superboy realizes that taking on all the freed inmates head-on isn't going to work, so he uses Icicle Jr.'s need for approval to his advantage. He manipulates the kid into breaking into the control room, and, in the blink of an eye, Superboy turns the collars back on, electrocuting and knocking out almost everyone in the building. The victory is short-lived. When Superboy reaches the women's ward to rescue Miss Martian, he finds her frozen solid. Despair hits hard. Thinking she's dead, the boy loses control, but the ice cracks and she wakes up. The relief is so overwhelming that he pulls her in for a cinematic kiss. The problem is that, in the heat of the moment, she reverts to her original Martian form. Icicle Jr., who was watching the whole thing without understanding the disguise, is horrified, thinking the guy was making out with his own sister. The riot is contained, but the ending brings no relief. Hugo Strange takes over as the prison's warden and casually chats with the villains behind the scenes. The entire breakout was just a brilliant distraction to smuggle high-tech equipment into Belle Reve, proving that the light is always 2 steps ahead. Artemis wakes up from a nightmare about her past. Years ago, her older sister Jade packed her bags and ran away, saying that in this family it's every girl for herself, leaving Artemis behind with a jailed mother and a dangerous father. In the present, she arrives at Gotham Academy for her first day of school, but the focus quickly shifts. She runs into Robin, and the two use a teleporter to get to the cave. Except, instead of their usual safe headquarters, they find the place flooded, on fire, and under heavy attack. Their superpowered friends have already been neutralized and trapped. The ones responsible are 2 machines that look like lethal versions of their own supervisor, Red Tornado. They are Red Torpedo, who controls water, and Red Inferno, who manipulates fire. Without super strength, super speed, or magic, Artemis and Robin's dynamic instantly shifts from heroic action to a pure survival movie against relentless androids. They crawl through the air ducts, dodging explosions and tidal waves, and come up with a plan. Trigger an EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon, to fry the machines. But when Robin tries to connect the device, he gets caught.
I can't believe you're buying her ass.
Rerouting power now.
A piece of metal.
Artemis finds herself completely alone, terrified, and ends up hiding in the trophy room. There, she comes face to face with the assassin Cheshire's mask, remembering her sister's words about jumping ship when things get tough. But Artemis isn't her sister. With only 1 arrow left, she faces the androids head on. She fakes a surrender for a split second, then shoots a perfect arrow into the electrical panel, completing the EMP circuit. The machines shut down, and the whole team is freed. Relief seems guaranteed when Red Tornado finally shows up. He listens to the story and approaches the other inactive androids, but as soon as the EMP wears off, Tornado short circuits, his eyes glow red, and he turns on the teenagers. With a single strike, he sucks all the air out of the room, asphyxiating the heroes until they pass out. Artemis wakes up to Superman reassuring the group. The Justice League arrive just in time, but Red Tornado has vanished without a trace. Gotham's mayor, Hamilton Hill, is out in the jungle hunting tigers, but before he can pull the trigger, some strange pillars trap the animal, and an armed gorilla wearing a red beret steps out of the shadows, guns blazing. Meanwhile, the team is still dealing with the trauma of Red Tornado's apparent betrayal. Superboy, in his classic explosive mode, finds out that Aqualad hid his suspicion about a mole on the team and snaps at him. The atmosphere gets heavy. Batman has to step in, declaring that Tornado is the League's problem, and ships the rookies off to India to investigate the gorilla attack. And since they're without a supervisor, Captain Marvel tags along as their babysitter. Arriving in the jungle, the team is completely fractured. Nobody wants to follow Aqualad. Robin and Kid Flash storm off one way. Artemis and Miss Martian go another. Superboy also wanders off. Aqualad and Marvel are left alone and soon run into giant elephants doped up on cobra venom. The rest of the group is also attacked by juiced up wolves, vultures, and crocodiles. Amidst the chaos, Aqualad realizes the animals are being controlled by collars and orders everyone to rip the devices off. It works, but Captain Marvel spots the tiger from before, flies after it, and ends up captured by the pillars and the gorilla. Aqualad finally takes the reins. He demands Miss Martian set up a mind link and gets the house in order. They track Marvel down to a secret lab where a talking brain in a jar, literally, the villain is named the Brain, is about to crack the captain's skull open to study the wisdom of Solomon. The team raids the place, disables the system, and an all-out brawl kicks off. The Brain manages to escape, but the group saves the day and frees frees the animals. Superboy even adopts a giant white wolf, naming him Wolf. Creativity took a back seat on that one. In the end, the team understands why Aqualad kept the secret and votes for him to stay on as leader. The cherry on top? The almighty Captain Marvel flies home, yells Shazam, and reveals himself to be just a 10-year-old boy getting ready for bed. Out of nowhere, a giant plant tears through the asphalt in Metropolis, causing chaos. Behind the scenes, a group of supervillains known as the Injustice League watches it all from the front row and decides it's time to step out of the shadows. At the cave, the team gets a visit from Zatara and Captain Marvel. The romantic tension between Superboy and Miss Martian is already obvious to everyone, but there's no time for gossip. Batman shows up with terrible news. Giant plants infested with cobra venom are attacking the entire globe, and the Joker is demanding a $10 billion ransom to stop the game. While the main Justice League heads to the front lines to trade punches with giant weeds and deal with lethal gas, the rookies are sent to the swamps of Louisiana to find the central control hub for these plants. Except the trip is far from smooth. Count Vertigo and Black Adam shoot down the team's ship in the middle of the swamp. Aqualad, keeping his focus, sends Robin and Miss Martian to find the central antenna, while the rest of the group holds the line. Robin and the Martian find the massive equipment controlling the mutant flora, but come face to face with Poison Ivy and the Ultra Humanite. The duo uses their agility to dodge attacks while Robin plants explosives all over the antenna, blowing the whole thing to pieces. Meanwhile, the other half of the team gets trapped in a mystical cage by Wotan. They manage to break free, but are at a clear disadvantage against the heavy hitters of the Injustice League. Left with no other option, Aqualad pulls an ace out of his backpack, the Helmet of Fate. Ignoring Kid Flash's protests, he puts on the helmet, transforms into Dr. Fate, and clashes head-on with Wotan's magic. The Justice League finally arrives to clean up the mess, and Batman knocks out the Joker before he can make things worse. To everyone's relief, Aqualad manages to take off the helmet afterward, thanks to Kent Nelson's soul convincing Nabu to let him go. Batman praises the team, but in an isolated location, Vandal Savage smiles. The Injustice League was just a distraction to keep the Light's true plans very well hidden. Far away, Professor Morrow is repairing Red Tornado, whose voice box has been deactivated, forcing him to listen silently to the villain's monologues. Morrow is joined by two other older androids, Red Torpedo and Red Inferno. At the base, the team is training hard, except for Wally, who's milking an injury to get pampered by Captain Marvel. That's when Zatara shows up bringing his daughter, Zatanna. Robin immediately turns on the charm. During a telepathic chat about how annoyed they are with the Justice League for keeping them in the dark, Zatanna hacks into their minds and ends up revealing that the League is hunting Red Tornado and Morrow. That's all they needed to hear. Using the excuse of going for a ride, the team takes off in the ship, technically kidnapping Zatanna at her own request. They pay a visit to Professor Ivo at Bel Rev Prison, and with a quick spell from her, Ivo spills the exact location of Morrow's lab. At the hideout, Morrow activates his newest masterpiece, Red Volcano. This android has no desire to be a hero or a human. He tears off his own creator's arms, revealing that this Morrow was just another robot, and sets out to trigger the Yellowstone supervolcano, wiping humanity off the map. When the team arrives, Volcano forces Red Tornado to prove his loyalty. Tornado wipes the floor with the kids, but discreetly leaves a message in the dirt telling them to play dead. Red Volcano figures out the trick, and the real brawl begins. He anticipates everyone's moves since he downloaded Tornado's memories. The tide only turns when Red Tornado himself convinces his siblings, Torpedo and Inferno, to help. The two sacrifice themselves, dragging Red Volcano into a pit of lava. The volcano still threatens to erupt, but Red Tornado creates a massive hurricane, funneling the ash cloud into space and saving the day. With his voice restored, he explains that he left to protect them, proving once and for all that he was never the mole. And the real Morrow? He's alive, sick in a bed, and Tornado decides to care for him, proving that his humanity goes far beyond his circuits. In the end, Zatanna gets the biggest grounding of her life from her dad, while Captain Marvel still tries, unsuccessfully, to find someone to play with. An alien ship passes by the moon, and without warning, disintegrates the Green Lanterns and Batman. The Justice League tries to fight back, but Superman, Martian Manhunter, and the rest of the heavy cavalry are also turned to dust. It's absolute chaos. Flash and his wife Iris are vaporized on live national television. Red Tornado, the last survivor, leaves the fate of the world in the rookie's hands before being destroyed as well. With their mentors dead, the team takes the front lines. They track a lone ship to the Fortress of Solitude. The infiltration mission quickly turns into a disaster. Wolf jumps in front of a blast to save Superboy, and right after, the weapon hits Artemis dead on. Miss Martian and Kid Flash watch in panic as their friend is erased from existence. In the destroyed Hall of Justice, Miss Martian finds Martian Manhunter alive under the rubble. A hopeful theory arises. Maybe the alien weapon is a teleporter, not a disintegrator, but the enemies strike again. Aqualad shoves his teammates into the escape tube and stays behind, sacrificing himself to hold off the ships. Robin takes command and orchestrates a raid on the mothership in Smallville, acting almost like a suicide mission. Superboy is taken down. Martian Manhunter scans the alien mines and drops a bombshell. They take no prisoners. The deaths are real. Out of options, Robin detonates the core's explosives, sacrificing himself and Kid Flash. Outside, the situation completely spirals out of control, and Martian Manhunter does the unthinkable. He phases through Miss Martian's chest, killing his own niece. And then, she wakes up. Everyone is alive and perfectly fine. The entire apocalyptic invasion was nothing more than a telepathic simulation training. The problem is that when Artemis died, Miss Martian's subconscious couldn't handle the grief and hijacked control of the simulation, making everyone believe it was real life. Martian Manhunter was forced to kill his own team within her mind to cause a shock and force her to wake up. A simple team exercise that ended in a level of psychological trauma none of them will forget anytime soon. The mood in the Justice Cave is heavier than usual. Following the trauma of the virtual training, Black Canary attempts to hold therapy sessions with the team, but dealing with traumatized, superpowered teenagers is no easy task. Superboy, having zero patience to deal with his own guilt, takes off on his new motorcycle, which is actually the transformed alien sphere. The ride is cut short when 5 teenagers unload from an interdimensional portal. They are the Forever People of New Genesis, and they've come to retrieve the sphere, but the machine itself communicates that it wasn't stolen. It was saved by Superboy. Since the tech has already chosen its pilot, the group's leader instantly accepts Superboy as an ally. Meanwhile, therapy continues. Aqualad confesses to Black Canary that he wants to step down as leader, but looking around, he realizes he can't drop that bomb on anyone else's lap. Robin is too young, Kid Flash is reckless, and the others have their own demons. Artemis, for instance, is terrified of losing her friends if she reveals her true identity, while Wally practically chokes on popcorn just so he doesn't have to admit how much Artemis's virtual death affected him. Following the track tech signature, Superboy and his new friends catch Intergang robbing the Federal Reserve with apocalyptian weapons. The fight gets serious when the Forever People combine their powers and merge into the Infinity Man, a massive entity that wipes the floor with the villains. However, Desaad, the weapons supplier, throws a device that takes control of the giant's mind, ordering it to crush Superboy. Salvation comes from the sphere, which attaches itself to the giant and breaks the enemy's control. With Intergang on the run, the alien leader allows Superboy to keep his new pet machine. Back on the couch, Superboy finally lets out the truth that was eating at him. Watching everyone die was terrible, but for a brief moment, he felt at peace. In the simulation, without their mentors around, he finally had the chance to be Superman. It's Halloween, but the real threat of the night isn't wearing a costume. At the art museum, a guy named Harm steals the legendary sword of Beowulf. The curator tries to warn him that the weapon only works for those with a pure heart. The problem is that pure doesn't necessarily mean good. Harm recites the spell, awakens the sword's power, and kills the man without blinking. At the cave, the romantic vibe between Superboy and Miss Martian is finally obvious. Zatanna notices the tension and teases Artemis, who gives a nervous laugh, but deep down feels the sting of jealousy. Frustrated with the situation, Artemis decides to skip the school Halloween dance. Zatanna, noticing her friend is upset, magically swaps their street clothes for their combat gear and suggests a girls-only night patrol.
Well, it's rough for you. Girls' night out.
While Connor, Magan, and Wally deal with teenagers pulling alien invasion pranks at the gym, the Justice League's top brass holds a tense meeting. Red Arrow plays the paranoia card, suggesting that either Artemis or Miss Martian could be the mole on the team, while Batman keeps his eyes on Superboy's instability. Out on the streets, what was supposed to be a quiet patrol turns into a game of cat and mouse. Harm spots the girls and decides to use them as a warm-up. Powered by the sword, he humiliates both of them in combat. They only manage to retreat because a mysterious little ghost girl who merely whispers the word secret helps them escape through the shadows. The escape is short-lived, and Harm corners them in a ruined house. There, the macabre picture comes together. The little ghost girl is named Greta, Harm's younger sister. The villain proudly confesses that he murdered her precisely because she was the only person he loved. Severing that bond is what made his heart pure with hatred, activating the sword. But Greta herself has the final word. The ghost approaches Harm and rips that dark purity right out of him. Stripped of the relic's power, the villain becomes easy prey for Artemis's punches. When the police arrive, Zatanna presses her friend to also reveal her secrets before they destroy her from the inside. Artemis brushes it off, pretending she isn't hiding anything, as she gazes melancholically at a broken neon sign on the street, where the word secret glows all alone. Clarion draws a magic pentagram, joins forces with 4 other sorcerers, and with a snap of his fingers, the unthinkable happens. Suddenly, every adult on the planet simply vanishes. Panic sets in fast. Batman, gone. Red Tornado went with them. The teenage heroes have to take control of the chaos. They turn schools into shelters, and the team broadcasts a global message urging calm. While the world goes crazy, Artemis tries to keep things under control by singing lullabies with all the wrong lyrics to the kids, which is a commendable effort, even if a bit mangled. Soon, Billy Batson figures out the magical prank. Earth has been split into 2 dimensions, one with only adults, the other with only children. Since Captain Marvel is literally a boy in a grown man's body, he can transition between the 2 worlds by shouting Shazam! He becomes the official communication bridge between Batman and Aqualad to orchestrate a simultaneous attack. The source of the magic is on Roanoke Island. In the youth's world, the team faces Clarion, while the adults deal with the other sorcerers in the other dimension. The fight gets tight, and Zatanna makes a desperate decision. She puts on the helmet of fate, letting the spirit of Nabu possess her body. The tactic works perfectly. The magic is broken, and the 2 worlds merge back together. But Nabu refuses to give the girl's body back, claiming that Earth needs Dr. Fate active. The scene is heartbreaking. Zatara, desperate to save his daughter, offers his own body in her place. Nabu accepts the trade. Zatanna cries, begging her dad not to do it, but he puts on the helmet and says goodbye forever. She moves into the cave, completely devastated, and as expected with grand conspiracies, the near end of the world was just a smokescreen. While the chaos unfolded, the light used the perfect distraction to steal an ancient artifact from Atlantis. Villains always keep a tight schedule. The routine at the cave pushes on, and today is Wally's 16th birthday. Snow is falling, classes are cancelled, and a surprise party has been set up by the team. He tries to capitalize on the moment by stealing a kiss from Miss Martian, but gets that kiss on the forehead that hurts more than a supervillain's punch. To nail the coffin shut on the romance once and for all, Artemis gives it to him straight and tells him that Magan and Superboy are together. The festive spirit dies right then and there.
Oh, man!
Batman cuts the pity party short, announcing that 5 giant ice fortresses are causing the absurd blizzard worldwide. Everyone gets a search and destroy mission side by side with the Justice League, except for the birthday boy. Since the Zeta tubes are down, Flash leaves Wally in charge of running across the United States to deliver a donor heart for a transplant in Seattle. He has 4 hours. The trip turns into a hellish marathon. He dodges traffic accidents and has to ignore his hunger while passing by multiple diners. Halfway through, Vandal Savage shows up literally just to stall the kid. Wally loses 15 precious minutes fighting the Immortal before managing to escape. He arrives at the hospital exhausted, only to receive the worst news possible. The patient died. The weight of failure crushes him until he connects the dots and realizes he was played. The real patient is the young Queen Perdita of Latava, who is still alive. The fake doctor who pronounced her dead was a henchman for Count Vertigo, who wants his niece dead so he can steal the throne. Kid Flash goes into survival mode. He chases the goons into the parking garage, retrieves the heart, and beats Vertigo to a pulp. The transplant is a success. Later, Vertigo tries to assassinate the Queen in her hospital room, banking on his diplomatic immunity. But Wally sets up a perfect bluff, gets the villain to confess to the crime, and ships him straight to Bel Rav prison. At the end of the day, saving an entire country single-handedly isn't a bad birthday present. An incredibly awkward vibe settles over the team when a leaked video shows Black Canary kissing Superboy after a training session. The catch? It wasn't Canary. It was Miss Martian using her shape-shifting powers. The real heroine tries to have a reasonable conversation about boundaries with the girl, but M'gann puts up every defensive wall possible. Before the drama can escalate, Batman sends the team to Karak. Out of nowhere, the country's president has decided to hand over the government to Queen Bee, the neighboring dictator. The villainess doesn't have the telepathic range to mind control from afar, which means someone on the ground is pulling the politician's strings. On their way to the target, the team stops at an animal sanctuary under attack, saving Marie Logan and her son, Garfield. The kid points out the obvious. Miss Martian looks exactly like the main character of an old TV sitcom his mom starred in called Hello Megan. The revelation hangs in the air just as drones attack the sanctuary. Garfield is critically injured in the explosion, and M'gann has to alter her own biology at a cellular level to donate blood and save the boy. With the situation stabilized, the team discovers that Simon is the one controlling the president. They confront him, and the villain quickly drags M'gann into a psychic battlefield. Simon tries to torture her by threatening to expose her true alien form to her friends, expecting her to submit. It was a massive mistake. Her fear turns to sheer fury, and M'gann crushes the villain's mind, leaving him in a coma. Free from the mind control, the team publicly humiliates Queen Bee with a brilliant piece of theater. M'gann assumes the dictator's form in front of TV cameras and gets publicly rejected by the president, completely destroying her speech of peaceful unification. Back at the base, M'gann finally comes clean. She based her entire personality and human appearance on the protagonist of that sitcom, striving for TV perfection. She shows her supposed true form to the team, and everyone accepts her without a second thought. Peace reigns, at least until the real Queen Bee invades Garfield's hospital room. She knows Miss Martian's actual monstrous form, and now she has the heroine right where she wants her. The Justice League is gathered at the Watchtower for one of their most important discussions yet. Who should join the team? While the heavy hitters debate expansion, the vibe at the cave is all holiday spirit. Zatanna cries while chopping onions for Thanksgiving dinner, but everyone there knows the real reason is how much she misses her dad. The focus quickly shifts when Superboy picks up an ultrasonic frequency only he can hear. The call leads him under a rainy bridge in Washington, where he meets none other than Lex Luthor. The billionaire doesn't waste any time and dangles the bait. Cadmus has created a new super clone. Boiling with rage, Superboy breaks into Cadmus. Guardian and the chief scientist deny everything, but the Genomorph XX tells the truth. Superboy smashes through a hidden wall and finds Project Match, a clone that is an exact copy of him, except with his rage dialed up to the max and full Kryptonian powers. Match wakes up, hands our protagonist a humiliating beatdown, rips the crest off his chest, and to prove a point, burns his own S onto his chest with heat vision. After taking a severe beating, Superboy hears the harshest truth of all from Luthor. His DNA is half Kryptonian and half human, meaning he will never have flight or heat vision. But Lex, playing his best mental chess, hands him shields, patches that suppress his human DNA for an hour, unlocking his full power. Superboy tracks Match to a secret underground city of Genomorphos. Sick of being the weaker half of the coin, he uses the patch. The power kicks in immediately. He ruthlessly crushes Match, but his rage spirals out of control. He keeps beating the clone even after he's knocked out, showing the dangerous side effect of all that raw power. Luthor later admits he let Match loose just to find the Genomorph city, using Superboy as his personal bloodhound. And the cherry on top? Luthor reveals that he is the human DNA donor, a classic father-son bonding moment. Artemis and Green Arrow are having a perfect night in Star City, taking down Black Spider complete with compliments and quips about poetic justice. But the excitement is short-lived. At home, Artemis's mother gives the girl a harsh reality check. She confesses that she begged Batman and Green Arrow to let Artemis join the team, terrified her daughter would go down the same criminal path as the rest of their family. Finding out her spot was basically a charity case crushes Artemis's ego, and she heads to the cave determined to prove her worth at any cost. The tension there is already high because Red Arrow has finally agreed to join the team, but he arrives pointing fingers, convinced she is the mole. The Knight's mission is to track down Sportsmaster, who just broke into the penitentiary and kidnapped Professor Ivo. In New Orleans, Cheshire shows up to complicate the chase. Insults are traded, and Red Arrow, consumed by paranoia, plants a tracker on Artemis herself. Offended and wanting to handle things her own way, she plants a fake tracker on a train to throw the boys off and goes after Cheshire solo. She breaks into a warehouse warehouse and stumbles upon Clarion, the Brain, and Ivo, experimenting on a bizarre starfish. When the rest of the team finally catches up, the villains use magic to escape. The mission is a total failure, and the blame falls squarely in Artemis's lap for ditching her own squad. Even Kid Flash, who always tries to have her back, is disappointed. While all this drama unfolds, Red Tornado spends the night in his room, building a handsome android named John Smith in an attempt to understand humanity. Everyone copes with stress differently. Artemis returns home defeated. When she walks into her room, Sportsmaster is waiting in the shadows. He rubs the truth she's running from right in her face. The team will never trust her if they find out about her blood ties, and her real place is right there, on the villain's side. The team is now in Europe, disguised as the Daring Dangers, a troupe of trapeze artists from Haley's Circus. Yes, Dick Grayson's old circus. Batman sent the crew to investigate a string of military tech thefts that curiously happen in the exact same cities where the circus performs. Robin insists on taking the lead, even though he's battling a flu so bad he can barely stand. The Interpol inspector suspects the circus owner, and Red Arrow, still on his paranoid crusade, also bets Haley is the culprit. They catch the thief in a warehouse, but it's no ordinary acrobat. It's Parasite. The guy breathes fire, blows the place up, and nearly sends the team flying. On the circus train, the penny drops. Parasite has been stealing the performer's abilities, which explains the mysterious flu taking out the cast. The villain runs into Superboy, absorbs his powers, and tosses the kid aside like a rag doll. Armed with brute strength and a stolen flash drive, Parasite heads straight for the particle accelerator in Geneva, with the insane goal of creating black holes. Not wanting to be useless in the fight, Superboy slaps on another of Lex Luthor's forbidden patches. When his strength comes roaring back, he makes up an excuse about his genetic healing factor being really fast. The team doesn't question it, because they have a bigger problem in front of them. They breach the accelerator to stop Parasite, who is now a deadly mashup of Superboy and Miss Martian. But it's exactly this combo that takes him down. By absorbing Magon's powers, he also inherited the Martian vulnerability to fire. Artemis notices this, fires an explosive gas arrow, and sets the room ablaze, putting the big guy down for good. With the villain in Interpol's custody, Red Arrow finally bites the bullet and admits that maybe there is no mole on the team, seeing as they all put their necks on the line together. To cap it off, Jack Haley pulls Robin aside and thanks him for saving the circus. He reveals that from his very first leap on the trapeze, he knew the masked boy was Dick Grayson. Some things never change. The press swarms the doors of the Hall of Justice for the main event. The League is inducting 5 new members, including Red Arrow. The team watches the broadcast on TV, beaming with pride, until an alert on Robin's computer cuts the party short. Cheshire was spotted boarding a plane with the villain's briefcase, the one packed with biotech. The plane crashes in the mountains, and the team moves in to investigate, only to walk right into an ambush. Cheshire, Riddler, and an army of mercenaries trap the heroes inside a force field. Amidst the melee, Superboy uses one of Lex Luthor's blocker shields and completely loses control, flying and firing heat vision like a furious mini Superman. Cheshire saves Artemis from being crushed in the chaos and flees, leaving the briefcase behind. Shortly after, Luthor sends a signal, and Superboy heads to Santa Prisca to collect his dues. When he arrives, he finds the elite of villainy waiting: Luthor, Sportsmaster, Blockbuster, Bane, and Queen Bee. Artemis and Miss Martian show up too, supposedly ready to betray the team because the villains hold dark secrets over their heads. Luthor tries to deactivate Superboy with a code word to force his loyalty, but nothing happens. Here's where the story shines. Instead of falling for the classic teen cliche of hiding secrets until everything goes wrong, the three had already come clean to the team back home. Miss Martian knocks out Queen Bee and reveals she had already wiped Superboy's mind of the hypnotic triggers. An all-out war breaks out on the island. Superboy and Miss Martian beat down Blockbuster. Artemis sends her own father packing, and the team completely dismantles the operation. But the taste of victory is fleeting. Up on the watchtower, Red Arrow visits Batman, plants a biotech chip on his neck, and mentally enslaves him. He does the same to the entire Justice League and opens the access gates for Vandal Savage. When the trance wears off, Roy wakes up to the brutal truth. He was the mole all along. Red Arrow sprints through the subway tunnels, hunted by Flash, Aquaman, and his former mentor. He doesn't stand a chance and escapes by the skin of his teeth. At the cave, Batman drops a truth bomb that shatters everyone's reality. The Roy Harper they've known for 3 years is a Project Cadmus clone, a sleeper agent programmed with a burning desire to join the League and betray them from the inside out. Very Manchurian Candidate vibes, just with a bow and arrow. The shock is interrupted when Red Tornado simply powers down and Black Canary attacks the kids. Robin, always prepared for the worst, knocks her out with gas. They transfer Tornado's consciousness into a backup android body, tie up Canary, and make a run for it. Aqualad tracks down Roy, and after verifying he's no longer under mind control by testing him with a painful secret, recruits him back. Tornado explains that the chips use a mix of magic and nanotechnology, but they have a millisecond delay, just enough for him to have triggered a failsafe protocol and shut himself off. The team then breaches the watchtower to save their mentors. What follows is a zero-gravity David versus Goliath showdown. They use healing tech to free the heroes one by one. Zatanna manages to save Dr. Fate, but is heartbroken to see her father remains trapped inside the helmet.
I can save Fate from Savage, but I still can't save my father from Fate.
The fight peaks when Superboy holds Superman off just long enough for Robin to use a stolen piece of kryptonite and cure the Man of Steel. Savage escapes with Clarion before things get worse. With the watchtower secured, the clock strikes midnight for the new year. Caught up in the moment and the hormones, Kid Flash kisses Artemis, Superboy kisses Miss Martian, and Zatanna steals a kiss from Robin. Superman finally looks at his clone, introduces himself as Clark Kent, and welcomes him to the family. But the relief evaporates quickly. Robin runs the system logs and discovers that 6 League members vanished without a trace for 16 hours while under mind control. Batman asks a question that sends chills down the spine. What did they do during that time? 5 years have passed, and the time skip hits the story like a freight train. The team has grown up, Robin is now Nightwing leading the base, and the hero roster has exploded with names like Beast Boy, Blue Beetle, and Wonder Girl. The dynamic has shifted too. Miss Martian is now dating Lagoon Boy, much to the visible dismay of Superboy. In the New York sewers, the new squad faces off against Clayface, neutralizing the monster by forcing him to swallow a pill that solidifies him from the inside. But the real chaos erupts at the UN. Lobo, the intergalactic bounty hunter, storms the building with the subtlety of a bulldozer. Wonder Girl and Batgirl try to hold him off, but he's a walking tank. Lobo grabs the Secretary General, rips his arms off, and reveals the politician was actually a robotic suit piloted by a disgusting alien called a Krolotine. Lobo ties the creature to his bike and takes off, in true Men in Black fashion. The media seizes on the bizarre attack to spread panic against alien heroes. At the Hall of Justice, Martian Manhunter introduces Adam Strange, a scientist who accidentally teleported to the planet Rann and uncovered the root of the problem. The Krolotines are stealing technology across the galaxy, and worse, the 6 Justice League members who vanished during those infamous 16 hours under Vandal Savage's control 5 years ago are now wanted as highly dangerous criminals on Rann. The ghosts of the past have finally come knocking. Nightwing wastes no time and splits the teams. He coordinates simultaneous strikes on all Krolotine hideouts on Earth. The new Robin, Blue Beetle, and Lagoon Boy raid an underwater base in New Orleans, fight off the aliens, and rescue dozens of humans who had been secretly replaced, including the real Secretary General. While Earth is being swept, Superboy, Miss Martian, and Beast Boy use teleportation tech to reach the planet Rann. They need to find out what the League did during those 16 hours, and the atmosphere suggests it wasn't for sightseeing. The chase through the jungles of Rann is intense. Superboy, Beast Boy, Miss Martian, and Alana are running for their lives from heavy Krolotine mechas. In the chaos of the firefight, the group gets separated. Before the bullets started flying, Adam Strange had introduced the team to Sardath, the Rannian scientist. The language barrier was an obvious issue, but Miss Martian solved it by linking everyone's minds. Sardath warns them that the entire planet harbors a lethal hatred for Earthlings now, all because of a monstrous incident involving 6 Justice League members on the planet Rimbor. The Krolotines are using the same teleportation tech as the League, and the only solution is to build a Zeta shield to block them from reaching Earth. Trying to keep a low profile while investigating the jungle, the team hops on a train in disguise. When immigration guards show up, Adam distracts them by reciting Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky, luring the officers out of the train car. A surprisingly effective tactic. In the jungle, jungle, they locate the enemy base and blow up the teleportation platforms, but quickly end up cornered by the mechas. During the desperate escape, Ilana tries to play therapist, suggesting that Miss Martian still has feelings for Superboy. The clone shuts that down immediately. He was the one who ended the relationship, making it clear she gave him no choice. Shortly after, Beast Boy breaks down crying upon seeing a waterfall that reminds him of his mother's tragic death. It's a moment of real vulnerability, but the timing couldn't be worse. A mecha ambushes them, knocks them out, and takes them captive. Superboy realizes the mind link is down and goes on a rescue mission with Ilana. They board the enemy ship, smash everything in sight, and find Megan unconscious. But when she wakes up, the mood turns pitch black. Without hesitation, she invades the Krollo teen leader's mind and leaves him in an irreversible catatonic state, horrifying Ilana.
What just...
Superboy confronts her over the lethal tactic, but Megan doesn't even blink. Cold and calculating, she simply states she read the alien's mind, found out what the League did on Rimbor, and that they need to get back home immediately. Back on Earth, the hunt for infiltrators gets even weirder. Blue Beetle and Bumblebee chase a Krollo teen that literally bursts out of the stomach of a fake fast food worker, Men in Black style. The creature escapes on a private jet, and the silent threat only grows. When the RAN team returns, Miss Martian drops the bomb about the League's missing 16 hours. Vandal Savage mind-controlled the heroes and sent them to the planet Rimbor to destroy everything in sight, declaring the galaxy should fear Earth. The Krollo teens invaded our planet strictly in retaliation. To find their main base on Earth, Megan uses her new favorite tactic and fries the mind of a captive alien. Superboy heavily judges her, but the method works. The target is Melina Island. Batman coordinates a massive assault with the League and the team. The underwater invasion starts off well, until the worst-case scenario materializes. The guy coordinating the villainous mechas takes off his helmet and reveals himself to be none other than Aqualad. Kalduram has switched sides. He mercilessly beats down Aquaman and Lagoon Boy, blaming his former king for Tula's death, and for hiding the fact that his real father is Black Manta. His hatred is genuine. Calder arms an alien bomb and escapes into the ocean. Superman stays behind to try and save the Krollo teens, who foolishly refuse his help, and the entire island goes up in a fireball. The Man of Steel barely survives, shielded at the bottom of the sea. Superboy is devastated that they couldn't save the aliens, while Black Manta introduces Kaldur to the Light, officially securing his place in the upper echelons of villainy. With no other choice and the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders, the 6 accused League members decide to face the consequences. They board a ship constructed by John Stewart's ring and head into space to stand trial on Rimbor, leaving Earth in the hands of the next generation. As the space dust settles, Earth's defenses get an upgrade. The Zeta Shield is finally activated globally, blocking any unauthorized teleportation travel, but the real problem is internal. Superboy drags Blue Beetle along on a mission tracking Whisper Adair and Bruno Mannheim of Intergang straight to the deserted Hall of Justice. Mannheim triggers an apocalyptian device that resurrects the Apalaxian stone monster, the very same creature from the Justice League's very first mission. The beast wakes up enraged, crushes the villain's remote control, and wipes the floor with Superboy and Beetle. Thanks to the chatty scarab attached to Beetle's spine, they realize the monster isn't trying to take over the world. The creature is suffering from an overload of life energy and is walking toward a nuclear power plant just to detonate itself and end its pain. Superboy, showing a rare moment of peaceful empathy, tries to help the giant power down in peace, but out of nowhere, a mysterious sonic blast hits the monster, shattering it entirely. From the shadows, Sportsmaster ensures the alien weapon doesn't fall into the hero's hands. Far away, Red Arrow's life has spiraled into a black hole of depression.
Hey, Roy. Need a hand?
No.
He spends his nights stealing money from thugs to fund his obsessive search for the original Speedy. Green Arrow, Nightwing, Black Canary, Jim Harper, and Wally West corner Roy on a rooftop for a heavy intervention. It's high drama. Roy rejects them all, accusing his friends of turning their backs on the kid who was actually abducted. When he returns to his filthy apartment, Cheshire is waiting for him in the dark. The assassin didn't come to fight, but to give him a reality check about how he's destroying his own life, and her argument is undeniable. Cheshire is holding a baby. Roy abruptly discovers he's the father of little Leon. As a final act of mercy, she tells him she pulled strings in the underworld and finally found a solid lead on where the real Speedy is hidden. Tai Longshadow has reached his breaking point. Fed up with fighting Maurice, his mom's boyfriend, he decides to run away to Houston. He calls Jaime Reyes, the Blue Beetle, to let him in on the plan. Jaime tries to intercept his friend at the bus station but arrives too late. And worse, someone grabs Tai from the shadows before he even gets on the bus. Jaime's biggest problem isn't just finding Tai, it's dealing with the scarab on his spine, which has a very simple solution for everything: extreme violence. When Jaime goes to question Maurice and later Tai's grandfather, the alien intelligence suggests everything from disintegration to hostile interrogation. It's like having a Terminator in his ear giving life advice. Meanwhile, the team deploys Alpha Squad to infiltrate Bialya and investigate the use of boom tubes. Since Queen Bee can control the minds of men, Nightwing puts together an all-female squad: Miss Martian, Bumblebee, Wonder Girl, and Batgirl. Naturally, Batgirl doesn't miss the chance to take a jab at the leader, pointing out how an all-male squad never needs a justification. The infiltration goes south fast. Wonder Girl, who was left behind for lacking stealth, runs headfirst into a heavy-hitting villain combo, including Simon and Mammoth. Batgirl finds the actual prize of the mission: dozens of kidnapped teenagers locked in pods, but gets knocked out and captured. The rescue turns into a mid-air disaster. Bumblebee wakes Batgirl up on the cargo plane because, ironically, she's the only one in the group who can't fly, so she needs to pilot the craft. Miss Martian knocks out and impersonates Shimmer, sparking an all-out brawl. They manage to save the plane from plunging into a canyon with the help of the bioship, but the teenagers aren't on board. The human cargo, including Tai, was already in Queen Bee's hands, ready to be delivered to a mysterious new partner. In a devastated, ash-covered future, a bald man helps a kid step into a time machine. Seconds later, an energy sphere bursts open inside the cave, and out steps Bart Allen, Impulse. The kid is a hyperactive hurricane. He runs circles around Beast Boy and Robin before Nightwing manages to restrain him. To prove he's from the future and the Flash's grandson, Bart plays fair and does what every time traveler shouldn't do: he spills secrets. He leaks everyone's secret identities in the room like a WikiLeaks dump. Taking advantage of the distraction, he bolts straight for Central City. Far away in Tibet, Red Arrow and Cheshire storm a heavily armed fortress. The bizarre detail is that they brought their baby daughter, Leon, along on the trip. Nothing screams Parents of the Year like bringing a newborn into a war zone. Their goal is to find the real Roy Harper, which they successfully do, pulling him out of a cryopod. In Central City, the Flash family is celebrating a wedding anniversary when Bart crashes into the living room, hugging everyone. He doesn't skip a beat and drops another spoiler: Iris is pregnant with twins. News not even Barry quite knew yet. But the family reunion is cut short by an attack from a new explosive villain named Neutron. Flash, Kid Flash, and Impulse race into the heart of the chaos. Bart and Barry create a wind funnel to contain Neutron's mid-air explosions. The synergy between the two is so fast that even Wally is left feeling like a third wheel. When things get dire and Neutron threatens to nuke the entire city, Impulse discreetly slips a pill into the villain, curing him instantly.
Might want to get him a blanket or something. What's happening now?
We're not sure, son.
G. Gordon Godfrey is on TV spewing his daily venom, basically operating as the anchor of a sensationalist news channel focused on alien hating. Today's target is the launch of an Earth-Mars communication satellite at Cape Canaveral. With sabotage threats in the air, the team is called into action. Artemis decides to suit up one last time, which causes some heavy friction with Wally, who just wanted to enjoy their early retirement, but she feels she has to go. The mission starts off tense, and not just because of the rocket's security. Aboard the bioship, Superboy and Miss Martian air their dirty laundry. He throws it in her face that she was mind-wiping people just like Simon, and she tries to justify herself through tears. As if the mood wasn't bad enough, Lagoon Boy decides to put on a show of insecurity. Bothered by seeing his girlfriend patrolling the sky with her ex, he ignores Nightwing's orders and attacks Black Manta's soldiers alone underwater. The result of this tactical jealousy? He is easily captured by Calderam. The team's former leader, now operating under his father's orders, leads a massive attack on the missile base. Superboy and Miss Martian work miracles in the air to intercept the projectiles, but on the ground, the situation falls apart. Calder engages in close combat against Nightwing and Artemis. In a swift and lethal move, he uses a water sword to pierce the archer's chest. The rocket ends up exploding in the sky, Black Manta's own doing to test his son's loyalty. At the cave, the mood is an absolute funeral. Everyone mourns Artemis's death, only for us to discover that it was all a grand rehearsed play. In an isolated warehouse, Nightwing meets with with Wally, Kaldor, and Artemis, alive and kicking. Her death was a perfectly choreographed act so she could get a magical glamour charm and infiltrate the underworld alongside Kaldor, who, at the end of the day, is still playing for the good guys. The real Roy Harper wakes up to the worst possible reality, missing an arm and with an 8-year blackout in his memory. Green Arrow and the clone Red Arrow have the thankless task of explaining that he was abducted by Lex Luthor and the Light, amputated for DNA harvesting, and replaced all this time. Roy doesn't swallow the story easily. He is furious with his mentor for giving up the search and kicks him out of the hospital room. Shortly after, he also bolts, proving that stubbornness is indeed genetic. Meanwhile, the mourning over Artemis remains heavy. At the cave, the team pays their respects in front of her statue, though Bart prefers to honor his teammate's memory by stealing Heim's snacks, claiming future survivors' rights. At the cemetery, Wally and Artemis's mother weep at her grave. What they don't see is that Cheshire and Sportsmaster are also there. Cheshire wants genuine revenge against Aqualad. Sportsmaster, on the other hand, is more concerned about his own professional reputation. After all, where did anyone ever hear of Black Manta's son killing his daughter without asking for permission first? It is an unforgivable offense in the criminal underworld. Across the country, Roy breaks into one of Green Arrow's old hideouts. He dons his classic suit, blows up the Zeta tube right in Oliver's face, and heads straight to Metropolis to sort things out with an RPG. Amidst a day where Connor quietly celebrates his birthday and the heroines enjoy Rocket's bridal shower, which is interrupted by a pathetic robbery attempt by Captain Cold, Roy blows up Lex Luthor's office. The billionaire survives by hiding in a vault and, with the utmost calmness, negotiates for his own life. He offers Roy a briefcase containing a state-of-the-art cybernetic arm. Roy takes the deal. By the time Green Arrow and Red Arrow finally find him, he's already on his way to get the new arm installed. He refuses any help, leaves the name Speedy behind, and warns them that from now on, he is Arsenal. Calderon continues delivering the best villain performance of the year. He doesn't hesitate to sedate his own former teammate, Lagoon Boy, right in front of Black Manta to maintain his cover. But the Light wants more than theater. They want irrefutable proof of loyalty. To provide this, Aqualad puts together a squad with Tigress, Icicle Jr., and the Terror Twins, setting out for a bold target, Mount Justice. The plan begins in El Paso, where Heim and Bart are killing time in the desert. They are ambushed by Aqualad's team, and although they manage to escape, Impulse ends up carrying a hidden alien tracker straight into the cave. A classic Trojan horse that disables all the base's security. With the door wide open, the invasion is brutal and surgical. One by one, the heroes fall. Beast Boy, Superboy, and Nightwing are knocked out and fitted with inhibitor collars. Blue Beetle even tries to fight back using the Scarab's full power, but Kaldor unleashes a point-blank magic attack, and Tigress knocks the kid out shortly after, taking him prisoner.
Come with me.
To ensure there are no doubts left about his new side in the war, Kaldor orders Tigress to trigger the detonators. The entire Mount Justice is consumed by a devastating explosion. Mal Duncan, who had just walked out of a painfully boring date in the lab with Karen, sees the explosion from afar and runs to the water, where he finds Nightwing, Superboy, and Wolf floating in the debris. At the Hall of Justice, Wally West freaks out. He throws it in Nightwing's face that the undercover mission has crossed all lines and brings up the worst-case scenario. Kaldor might have actually gone full triple agent. Losing his girlfriend and discovering his father as an international terrorist would be the perfect push into madness. But the ends justify the means. The base's destruction convinces everyone. Deep within the ocean, Ra's al Ghul and Black Manta officially welcome Kaldor as a full member of the Light. Heim wakes up from the worst possible nightmare straight into an even more terrifying reality. He is trapped inside an alien pod, being analyzed by a scientist from the Reach and the ruthless Black Beetle. Nearby, Aqualad gets a VIP tour of the alien ship, observing the labs where they isolate and attempt to weaponize Earth's metagene. But the Reach's control over the situation is about to crumble. Nightwing has orchestrated a full-scale rescue mission. Batgirl, Tim, and Bumblebee infiltrate the enemy ship while the bioship approaches silently. Miss Martian goes into stealth mode and begins freeing the prisoners, releasing Beast Boy and Impulse first. Navigating the corridors, Magan runs into Aqualad. Driven by hatred, she doesn't think twice before before launching a devastating telepathic attack on his mind. But as she tears through the former leader's mental defenses, she discovers the terrible truth. Kaldur never betrayed them. Artemis's death was a fake-out. The weight of having fried the mind of a loyal ally paralyzes her with shock and guilt, allowing Tigris to escape, dragging away a now catatonic Kaldur. In the cargo bay, the situation falls apart. Black Beetle locks the exits and, with humiliating ease, mops the floor with Superboy, Wonder Girl, Lagoon Boy, and the rest of the team. At the same time, Bart manages to find and free Heim, dropping a bomb in the kid's lap. In the future, it is Blue Beetle who causes the apocalypse on Earth. With no time to process that pressure, Heim takes control of the armor and goes head-to-head with Black Beetle. The fight between the two is insane and ends with an energy clash so powerful it blows open the ship's hull, sucking Blue Beetle out into the ocean. The bioship manages to rescue everyone and escape, but there is no mood for celebration. To make matters worse, while Nightwing gives the mission debrief, the TV news broadcasts a diplomatic nightmare. The Reach has parked a ship right in front of the UN, shaken hands with the Secretary General, and declared themselves friends and saviors of Earth on a global broadcast. A brilliant public checkmate, while dozens of other ships quietly hide deep beneath the ocean. Out in space, Elrond presents a veritable menu of Earth's heroes to Despero, who is itching for a new trophy. Since Superman is off-planet, the target of the day becomes Captain Marvel. The alien just has to open his third eye for us to know things are about to get ugly. On Earth, the PR war wages on. The Reach ambassador pretends to be humanity's best friend at the UN, tying Captain Atom's hands, while G. Gordon Godfrey keeps poisoning the public's mind against the Justice League.
The Justice League always supports peaceful diplomacy.
To make the team's situation worse, Mount Justice is gone, and Nightwing has to cram everyone into an old warehouse, using the Hall of Justice as a temporary base. But there's not even time to unpack. Despero suddenly appears in the Hall of Justice and turns the place into a gladiator arena, isolating everything with a force field. He puts Captain Marvel and Zatanna in a trance in the blink of a third eye. Superboy tries to take him head on, but takes a massive beating. The situation calls for a mental attack, but M'gann is completely traumatized after what she did to Kaldur and freezes up. In desperation, Mal Duncan suits up in the Guardian armor to buy time. He gets completely trashed, but the sacrifice works. M'gann manages to telepathically wake the others, Zatanna casts a spell reversing Despero's power, and Superboy finishes the big guy off. Unable to accept defeat, Elrond activates the self-destruct sequence, and the iconic Hall of Justice collapses. And who shows up to save the day by lowering the force field? The Reach ambassador, just for the photo op. Meanwhile, at Star Labs, Black Canary notices Virgil's electrical powers manifesting, but the real bombshell comes from Blue Beetle. Terrified by the prophecy that he will cause the apocalypse, Jaime comes clean to the team leaders and begs them to rip the scarab off him, whatever the cost. The attempt to remove Heim's scarab plays out like an episode of Fantastic Voyage, with the Atom and Bumblebee shrinking down and entering the kid's body, but the alien parasite defends itself fiercely, making it clear it won't leave as long as the host is alive. With no easy fix for Beetle, the team turns its attention to the Reach's latest marketing stunt, an agricultural partnership with LexCorp in Smallville. Nightwing puts together a stealth squad with Robin, Impulse, Blue Beetle, and Arsenal to investigate. Disguised on a farm tour, they discover that the juicy crops are being laced with a suspicious additive. Far away, tensions boil over among the villains. Sportsmaster demands Kaldur's head as payback for Artemis's death. When Vandal Savage and Black Manta refuse, Sportsmaster breaks ties with the Light and flees with Cheshire's help, ready to seek his own revenge. Back at the farm, the supposed stealth mission goes out the window because Arsenal decides to act like a true loose cannon. He plants explosives just to give Lex Luthor a headache, triggering all the alarms. It doesn't take long for Black Beetle to show up, handing out beatdowns to everyone in the middle of the cornfield. Heim refuses to hand over control to the Scarab, terrified of the apocalypse, leaving the team cornered. That's when the unlikely happens. An alien in green armor with Martian powers joins the fight, throwing punches at Black Beetle. Working together, they manage to take down the villain and escape. Safe at the Kent family farm, the new ally introduces himself as Green Beetle of Mars. More importantly, he telepathically tells Heim that he knows how to silence the Scarab once and for all. Meanwhile, Luthor and Savage survey the damage at the farm and decide it's time for the Light to assemble their own team of super-powered youths. Artemis and Kaldur's charade is hanging by a thread. When Black Manta brings Simon in to fix his son's broken mind, Tigris knows the telepath will read the truth instantly. In a desperate move, she shoots shoots him with a sedative dart and lies, claiming Calder's mind has a mental virus left by Miss Martian. The excuse sticks, and Manta decides that M'gann herself will have to fix the damage. At Star Labs, Miss Martian reads Green Beetle's mind and vouches that he's trustworthy. The Martian reveals that the additive in LexCorp's drinks is meant to make the population docile and track the metagene. With the Reach's threat growing, Haim ignores Impulse's warnings and begs Green Beetle to take control of his scarab. M'gann travels to Chicago to deal with Lagoon Boy's jealousy, but the relationship drama is cut short by Tigress and Deathstroke. They take down the Atlantean, slap an inhibitor collar on the Martian, and kidnap her. At the hospital, Nightwing finally has to come clean. He tells Superboy and Lagoon Boy that Calder and Artemis are deep undercover in the light.
We faked Artemis's death. She's alive. In fact, Artemis is Tigress.
You don't leave a guy a lot of options. You've no idea what your secrets have done to us.
What does that?
Superboy is furious, and rightfully so. Because Nightwing kept it hidden, M'gann thought Calder was a murderer and fried his brain. Batman's old habit of keeping secrets is taking its toll. On Black Manta's submarine, M'gann dives into Calder's mind, which looks like a post-apocalyptic version of Atlantis. Artemis joins in Inception style to help. They face heavy mental defenses in the form of Tula, but finally locate the real Calder and start rebuilding his memories. The problem is, the clock is ticking. Outside, Black Manta warns Tigress that the second the Martian finishes the job, he will kill her without a second thought. And while M'gann's fate hangs in the balance, Haim runs into Impulse on the street, smiling, saying that Green Beetle managed to silence his scarab, which honestly seems too good to be true. The runaways from Star Labs have hit their breaking point. Virgil and the gang are sick of being treated like lab rats with endless tests and absurd demands. The tension explodes, and they decide to bail. Neutron tries to stop them, fearing they'll lose control of their powers, but ends up triggering the alarm. In the chaos, Virgil knocks out a guard with a fire extinguisher. The building goes dark, and the group vanishes into the night. Nightwing drops the bomb in Haim's lap. He needs to go after his friends. Blue Beetle finds the group hiding out in a bus station right as Ty, exhausted, has a nightmare and manifests a giant astral avatar that rips the roof off the place. Haim tries diplomacy, shows them his own scarab, and warns them about the dangers out there. His suggestion is to seek out Green Beetle for help. But the plan is interrupted when Red Volcano decides to crash Star Labs looking for Amazo's parts. And what do the runaways do? They head right back to the place they just escaped from to help. The battle is heavy. Ty uses his giant avatar to grapple the robot, but Volcano is a tough nut to crack. Haim, on the other hand, goes totally overboard. He attacks with such sonic fury that he ignores civilian safety, nearly collapsing the building on top of everyone. In the end, the kids save the scientists using their own powers, and Haim poses for the reporters who miraculously pop up on the scene. The dark truth? Haim and Green Beetle stage this entire circus to sell Blue Beetle's image as Earth's great savior, now that he is completely under the Reach's control. And because it never rains but it pours, the runaways head back to the ruined bus station, only to find none other than Lex Luthor. With that smooth tone of someone who knows exactly what to say, he offers them protection, throwing it in their faces that Blue Beetle has become a puppet. It's classic Lex, showing up at the exact moment of vulnerability to reel in his own recruits. The trial of Superman and the League over on Rimbor turns into absolute chaos when the news that the Reach has arrived on Earth leaks in the middle of the courtroom. Vandal Savage, working in the shadows, quickly realizes that the aliens' access to the human metagene could shift the balance of the entire galaxy. The response to this quickly arrives in the form of the Warworld, a terrifying space station, basically a Death Star controlled by Mongol. The dictator decides that Earth, now under the Reach's influence, is too great a threat and needs to be wiped off the map. While Dr. Fate and the League's heavy hitters buy time clashing with the missiles in space, the team splits into 3 squads to infiltrate the station. The dynamic inside is insane. Superboy and the Alpha Squad run straight into Mongol himself, who hands out beatings like the heroes are made of paper. He blocks Arsenal's rocket launcher with his bare hand and crushes Superboy with his knee. Meanwhile, the Gamma Squad tries to disable the power core. Bumblebee proves that size doesn't matter. Instead of trying to break the core, she reroutes the power, frying Mongol's controls. This gives Superboy the perfect opening to launch a group attack and knock the dictator out once and for all. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Reach sacrifices its own fleet to destroy the remaining Warworld missiles. They lose ships but gain the blind trust of the population, turning an invasion into the greatest PR move ever seen. With the victory in the bag, the team gathers to celebrate, but Blue Beetle, now holding the crystal key to the war world, shows his true colors. In a cowardly and brutal attack, he knocks out practically everyone in the room with sonic blasts. Arsenal, terrified at the thought of being a prisoner again, blows the airlock and escapes into outer space. Haim takes down Superboy and secures the weapon for his masters. The Reach now holds not only Earth, but the control of the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The walls are closing in inside Black Manta's submarine. Manta loses his patience with his son's slow recovery and gives Miss Martian a cold ultimatum: cure Kaldor in 24 hours or die. What he doesn't even imagine is that Kaldor is already lucid, merely faking the coma while they hatch a plan to get Magan out of there alive without blowing everyone's cover. To make an impossible schedule even worse, Sportsmaster and Cheshire board the sub out for blood. They want revenge for Artemis's supposed death. Cheshire goes straight for Kaldor while her father hunts down Black Manta. Tigress scrambles through the corridors, forced to fight her own father to stop him from ruining the team's undercover mission. Chaos reigns until Miss Martian regains consciousness and plays her final card. She pulls the minds of Kaldor, Tigress, Cheshire, and Sportsmaster into a telepathic projection of Artemis's childhood bedroom. It's the most bizarre family reunion imaginable. Magan puts the truth on the table, revealing that Artemis is alive and that this is all an infiltration. Cheshire gets the message quickly, but Sportsmaster only drops his guard when Tigress disarms him in the real world using an exclusive move that he taught her himself. With egos in check and the truth established, the assassins fake a dramatic defeat to maintain Tigress's cover and flee. Miss Martian takes advantage of the opening, shifts into her Martian form, and also escapes. This leaves Kaldor free to miraculously wake up from his coma, telling Black Manta that the shock of seeing his father in danger triggered his cure. The villain swallows the story, beaming. Meanwhile, miles away, Nightwing investigates the war world and discovers scarab nanites that prove Blue Beetle's betrayal. As if he needed more proof, Jaime Reyes appears on national TV, takes off his mask for the whole world, and delivers a speech idolizing the Reach. Watching it all in the dark, Nightwing snaps a Batarang in half out of pure rage. The boy who was supposed to be their salvation just became the poster child for the end of the world. The Reach has comfortably settled onto the war world, even without access to the Crystal Key, which Black Beetle had to lock in a vault since the Justice League is blocking the main chamber. To the press, the ambassador cynically spins the excuse that the massive space station is actually a peaceful gift to Earth, a true master of alien PR. Meanwhile, inside the war world, Arsenal is running for his life, trading fire with soldiers with no response from the Watchtower. On Earth, the rescued runaways are venting their frustration by vandalizing Reach propaganda. That's when Lex Luthor calls, offering a chance to truly fight back. He hands them a mother box and convinces them to use a boom tube to infiltrate the war world and save the captured team. In space, Nightwing and Miss Martian continue an exhausting search aboard the camouflaged bioship. They end up reuniting with Sphere, who transforms into the Super Cycle, providing that much-needed glimmer of hope. At the same time, the runaways arrive wreaking havoc on the war world and come face to face with Black Beetle guarding the team's cells. Arsenal, who already had his eyes on them, helps isolate the villain, but not before creating the perfect chaos. He blasts a cell open, releasing none other than Mongol. The big guy spots Black Beetle, and an all-out brawl ensues, buying them time to escape. But Luthor's plan had a hidden agenda. While everyone was fighting, Deathstroke slipped through a portal and stole the crystal key for the light. The team is finally freed, but the mood is heavy. Nightwing fires Arsenal on the spot for blindly blowing up a cell and putting everyone at risk. Outraged by the decision, the runaways invite Arsenal into their group, return to Earth, and destroy the mother box right in Luthor's face, making it clear they are no one's pawns anymore. Under the starlight, they hit the road on their own. Black Beetle, now with Green Beetle's help, finally manages to overpower and imprison Mongol again. But he is still furious because the crystal key is missing, and the ambassador demotes him to a mere perimeter security guard, deeply offending the villain's warrior pride. On Earth, Blue Beetle's situation is bizarre and disturbing. The ambassador has taken full control of the boy, turning him into the perfect poster child. Jaime defeats Toyman in Metropolis and gives smiling interviews, reciting pre-programmed speeches about the partnership with the Reach, while screaming screaming in despair, trapped inside his own mind. Impulse and Batgirl attempt a street ambush, but are nearly killed when the Ambassador decides that this is the perfect stage for a clean execution. What saves them is a kinetic force field created by Rocket, reinforced at the last second by Zatanna's magic. The Scarab tries to fight back, but there's no hacking magic. With Blue neutralized and captured, the team heads to a Bialyan temple that Batgirl had discovered some time ago. Amidst this tension, Miss Martian has a heavy conversation with Lagoon Boy. She breaks up with him, admitting that she used him to fill the emotional void left by Superboy, and that she needs to figure herself out alone, proving that alien captivity also serves to bring mental clarity. At the temple, the team steamrolls Devastation, Mammoth, and Shimmer, who, in reality, threw the fight on Queen Bee's orders to ensure the Light's plans remain intact. Green Beetle shows up to stop the ritual, leading to a massive showdown against Beast Boy, Robin, Wonder Girl, and Blue. With just a second left before the spell fails, Impulse tosses Green into the mystical circle alongside Blue. Zatanna and the invoked spirit of Isis unleash the ancient magic. An intense, blinding light fills the room, the Reach's visors turn to pure static, and the Ambassador freaks out. The spell works. The connection is severed, and Haim finally regains control of his own body, ready to fight on the right side. The atmosphere is thick in a subterranean cave in Santa Prisca. It's the ultimate summit between the Light and the Reach, and the tension is palpable from the start. The Ambassador demands to know why the Light let the team use the Bialyan temple to cure the Beetles. Calder coldly defends the villain's side, but the argument quickly spirals into an epic exchange of insults over the Reach's countless public failures. Everything falls apart in an instant when Ra's al Ghul focuses on Tigress's necklace. He tears the amulet off, breaking the illusion and revealing that she is, in fact, Artemis. The Ambassador doesn't hesitate and orders the immediate execution of the two traitors. Deathstroke draws his weapon and shoots Calder and Artemis in the chest. Black Manta falls into despair, holding the body of his son who, with a final smile and his last breath, drops a device and activates a hologram. Calder's recorded video exposes absolutely everything. The Light has been sabotaging the Reach since day one, neutralizing the additive in the drinks, hiding metahumans, and facilitating access to the Bialyan temple. The entire alliance was a fraud. Vandal Savage foams at the mouth at the audacity, but the best was yet to come. Calder and Artemis rise from the floor, unharmed. The Deathstroke shooter was none other than Miss Martian using her powers. Top-tier theater. The trap closes, and the team invades the cave from both sides. The ensuing brawl is every villain's nightmare. Beast Boy turns into a gorilla to crush Miss Shirmala, while Blue Beetle reveals he was disguised among the League of Shadows ninjas. Calder clashes head-on with his own father, bringing Black Manta down with a heavy blow, proving that his loyalty to justice never wavered. Realizing he's lost control, Vandal Savage uses Clarion to escape. Black Beetle, sick of human incompetence, stabs Ra's al Ghul in the back, invokes an obscure Reach protocol to relieve the Ambassador of his command, and flees. The team wins the battle, much to the relief of a Beast Boy, who is already traumatized by Nightwing's sheer number of fake deaths. But victory comes at a price. Savage resurfaces on the war world, takes down the League heroes standing guard, and steals the entire space station. On Earth, after the UN uses the battle footage to officially expel the Reach, Black Beetle makes an apocalyptic decision. If the fleet has to leave, he will destroy the entire planet just to sweep the evidence under the rug. At the Rimbor Tribunal, the Justice League is found guilty. Miss Martian and Superboy arrive late with the evidence of their innocence, but quickly realize how the game is played. They convince the corrupt judges that a favorable verdict will attract more legal cases and, consequently, more bribes in the future. It's pure space capitalism saving the day. Meanwhile, on the Reach's ship, Black Beetle tires of diplomacy and decides to just kill everyone. The fight between the Beetles is brutal. Green tries to free Black's mind, but ends up getting his own Scarab destroyed. Haim steps up and fries the villain's Scarab. The catch is the information that comes with it. The plan to destroy Earth is already underway. Multiple magnetic field disruptors begin causing global weather disasters. And out of all the people in the world, the one who offers the antivirus to save the planet is Lex Luthor. Without much choice, the heroes split into 20 squads and manage to disarm the devices. But Haim finds a 21st disruptor in the Arctic, and it's already in critical condition. Flash and Impulse run in the opposite direction of the vortex to siphon off the energy, but they need more help. Kid Flash joins the run. However, Wally is slower than the other two. He ends up acting as an exhaust valve for the energy, and his body can't handle it. In one of the hardest scenes to watch, he realizes he's going to fade away. He asks his uncle to tell Artemis that he loves her, and simply vanishes into thin air. Earth is safe, but the weight of the victory is crushing. Artemis is devastated and decides to drop her hero name to take on the Tigress mantle full-time. Nightwing, unable to cope with the loss of his friend, takes a leave of absence from the team. And just to make sure the universe remains a terrible place, Vandal Savage parks the war world on Apocalypse, shakes Darkseid's hand, and the two carry on with business as usual. The dust has barely settled, and the hero community is already falling apart. During a mission, Black Lightning accidentally kills a brainwashed metahuman teen. The trauma is too heavy, and he decides to hang up his suit. And he's not the only one heading for the door. With Lex Luthor now running the UN and tying the Justice League's hands with sheer bureaucracy, Batman decides he's had enough. As usual, Bruce opts to play by his own rules. He simply resigns from the League, taking Green Arrow, Robin, and a good chunk of his associates with him. Far from office politics, Nightwing tracks a meta-human trafficking ring to the nation of Markovia. The country is a total powder keg. The King and Queen have just announced their support for Karaki refugees, while Prince Brionne is actively looking for a way to trigger his own metagene so he can protect his people. The crisis completely erupts when a speedster invades the palace and murders the monarchs in cold blood. Baron DeLam seizes the power vacuum, steps in as regent, and immediately declares martial law. Knowing diplomacy won't cut it, Dick puts together a Black Ops team to investigate. He recruits Tigress, an extremely reluctant Black Lightning, who can't even use his powers anymore due to his trauma, and Superboy. At least there's a silver lining amid the chaos. Before shipping out on the mission, Connor finally asks M'gann to marry him. A rare moment of happiness before they dive headfirst into yet another international conspiracy. The Black Ops mission in Markovia kicks off with classic espionage. Nightwing and Tigress put on their best gala attire and infiltrate the royal family's reception. While they blend in and scope out the suspects, Superboy and Black Lightning handle the dirty work, breaking into the morgue at the children's hospital. What they find underground is a scientific nightmare. It's a human trafficking assembly line, with teenagers trapped in pods filled with a dark substance, and even a dismantled mother box. The party ends when Count Vertigo shows up and unleashes the monster Plasmus on them.
Count Vertigo to you, legend. Plasmus.
With Black Lightning unable to use his powers due to his mental block, the duo tries to escape through the sewers, but Superboy ends up knocked out and captured. Across town, Tigress investigates a cemetery and stumbles upon a cover-up operation, traffickers burying bodies. The problem is, a Karaki refugee girl is still alive. When the criminals attack, the girl suddenly generates a red aura that protects them both from gunfire, giving Tigress the opening she needs to save her from the madness. Back at the hospital, Prince Brionne arrives thinking he's finally going to get his powers to save the country. Instead, he discovers he's walked right into the lion's den. Vertigo himself takes the prince down, who wakes up locked inside one of the pods next to Superboy. And to prove that no one in this family has any luck, Dr. Helga Jace, the Dr. Brionne blindly trusted, appears and cold-heartedly initiates the process to force the activation of the boy's metagene. On-screen, Garfield Logan is giving an interview to Courtney Whitmore on a Star Trek-style set, talking about Queen Perdita and speaking out against meta-human trafficking. But the reality in Markovia is far less glamorous. Brionne Markov is trapped in an underground tank belonging to Project Bedlam, begging to be let out as a dark liquid engulfs the pod. While Tigress and Black Lightning make their way through the sewers with a teenage Karaki refugee, Nightwing does what the Bat family does best, puts on a lab coat, infiltrates the hospital in disguise, and slips into the secret lab. He finds Superboy, Brionne, and Dr. Helga Jace, but before he can act, he witnesses a classic villain betrayal. Count Vertigo decides he's taking control of Latava and handing Markovia over to Prince Gregor. However, the true mastermind behind the operation reveals himself, Frederick DeLam, Baron Bedlam in the flesh. All hell breaks loose. Plasmus, a giant lava monster, attacks Tigress and Black Lightning, who is still suffering from his mental block and can't use his powers. The day is saved by the Karaki girl, now nicknamed Halo, Halo, who comes crashing through on the supercycle. Nightwing uses the chaos to free Superboy and Brion. Delam makes a strategic retreat and, in a dirty move, goes on TV to blame Brion for all the metahuman trafficking and the murder of their own parents. Hearing this makes Brion completely lose his mind and the control over his new geological powers. In the ensuing fight to stop them, Plasmus hits Halo head-on. It looks like a tragic end for the girl, but she glows with a violet aura and simply resurrects. The shock of her death is the push Black Lightning needed to unlock his powers and hold the monster back. He discovers Plasmus is being controlled by a device, rips the thing off, and reveals the monster is actually Otto, a manipulated and transformed boy. Otto even switches sides to help the heroes, but tragedy strikes when a terrified civilian shoots and kills the boy, thinking he was a monster. At the palace, Superboy takes down Delam, but Prince Gregor, under pressure from his advisors, makes the coldest decision possible. He banishes Brion, his own brother, from Markovia. Stateless and familyless, Brion has no choice but to leave with Superboy and the team. With the dust settling in Markovia, everyone is turned into a babysitter. Brion is at Superboy and Miss Martian's house, trying not to break anything. Dr. Jace is under Black Lightning's care, and Halo ends up at Artemis and Will Harper's place. The only one dodging responsibility is precisely the guy who caused all of this, Dick Grayson. Dick shows up in Star City with Roy and Jim Harper, looking to recruit Will to raid a meta-human trafficking operation. Will agrees, but with a very mundane condition. The Harper family and Dick must help him escort a shipment of VR goggles for his company, Bowhunter Security. While the boys play delivery men, Artemis takes Halo to a park searching for answers about the girl's past. They run into Dr. Fate. In a rare moment of mercy, Nabu releases Zatara's body for exactly 1 hour so he can say goodbye to his daughter, Zatanna. It's a heartbreaking scene. Back on the road, what was supposed to be a quiet freight job turns into a fast and furious sequence. The villain Brick and his gang attempt to hijack the trucks, running cars off the road, tearing off roofs, and jumping between moving semis. Amidst the high-speed brawl on the roof of a truck, Will gives Dick a reality check. He calls out the former Robin for just using the Harpers to fill the void left by Wally West's death, and tells him he needs to step up and take responsibility for the kids he rescued in Markovia. While Dick and Will throw Brick off the truck and save the cargo, Zatara's time runs out. His and Zatanna's goodbye is devastating. Halo gets a few scattered flashes of her traumatic past, experimentation, kidnapping, but ultimately all she can remember is darkness. By the end of the day, Bowhunter Security fulfills the contract. Dick finally admits Will is right and promises to look after Brion, Halo, and Jace. And just for kicks, the four of them still find the energy to dismantle the meta-human trafficking operation before calling it a night. Far from Earth, diplomacy on New Genesis is going from bad to worse. The Bugs, led by Mantis and the ever-optimistic Forager, try to close a trade deal with Orion, but the deal is a blatant scam, and Orion takes off with the minerals, leaving the Bugs furious and ready for war. On Earth, Brion tries to force his way back to Markovia, but his brother makes it clear he is persona non grata there. The boy's frustration is interrupted when Bear from the New Gods emerges from a boom tube, asking the team for help. He reveals that the monsters attacking the Bugs on New Genesis have human DNA. They could be the abducted teenagers from Markovia. The team splits up. Miss Martian leads a squad to New Genesis, while Superboy, Dick, Artemis, and Black Lightning stay behind to train the rookies. Dick Grayson finally accepts his role as a reluctant father figure, setting up a secret Zeta tube and giving the refugees League credentials. During training, Halo discovers her yellow aura fires energy blasts, which is great, but it damages her own body, forcing her to immediately use her violet aura to heal herself.
She's healing herself.
On New Genesis, Magan disguises herself as a bug to expose the fake Orion. The truth is a punch to the gut. The imposter is Macomb, Miss Martian's own younger brother. Going by the name Ma'alafa'ak, he has adopted a radical stance and is orchestrating a war between the Bugs and the New Gods to gather support and lead a white Martian uprising. Magan tries to show him that hatred isn't the way, sharing the memories of love and friendship she built on Earth. For a second, it seems the redemption speech is going to work, but Macomb is unyielding. Realizing his plan has failed, he triggers a lethal device inside the minds of the two metahumans accompanying him, killing the boys on the spot and flees. To make matters worse, Mantis accuses Forager of treason for fighting alongside the team and banishes him from the hive. Homeless, the Bug gets a one-way ticket to Earth. Speaking of having nowhere to go, Dick makes a heavy promise to Brion. If he stays and trains, the team will help him find his missing sister. Jakar Marlowe thinks he's managed to shake off Black Spider, but the peace is short-lived. Out of nowhere, a mysterious individual crushes the guy with a massive boulder. Black Spider is actually quite proud of the handiwork. Far from that mess, Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon enjoy a rare moment of peace at home until the computer beeps, calling them to work. At the same time, Brion and Halo meet Forager, who now speaks perfect English thanks to a mental download from Miss Martian. But the friendly vibe shifts when the team puts the pieces together. The rock-wielding assassin might be Tara, Brion's missing sister, using her Earth manipulation powers, and based on Black Spider's location, she would be with the League of Shadows on Infinity Island. Brion wants to storm the place immediately. Dick, with the patience of someone who's taken plenty of beatings in life, warns him that going head-to-head with Ra's al Ghul without a plan is suicide. Brion pretends to agree, but shortly after steals the supercycle alongside Halo and Forager and heads for the island. It's ironic watching Dick deal with rebellious rookies, considering he used to do the exact same thing at their age. On the island, the trio runs into the Sensei, and the fight is an absolute massacre. The Master takes down Brion and Forager as if they were made of paper and with a brutal strike snaps Halo's neck, but she simply glows with a purple aura and heals instantly under the watchful eye of Ra's al Ghul through the security cameras. Nightwing's team arrives for the rescue, and the all-out brawl only stops when Ra's himself appears. He informs them he no longer leads the shadows, nor is he part of the light, so he doesn't have the girl. Brion isn't buying it, but Dick vouches that Ra's isn't one to lie. To top it off, Talia emerges holding a baby, and one of the ninjas mutters the name Grayson, a ticking time bomb. On the way back, Brion takes the heat and pledges loyalty to Dick's orders, and Halo, after learning her real name was Gabrielle, a Karaki refugee, decides to permanently adopt the identity of Violet. Alien threats are en route to Earth, but the Justice League is divided and scattered across space. Why? Because Lex Luthor and Vandal Savage perfectly orchestrated this distraction. The problem is that the spell backfires. With the heroes too busy to defend the planet, Savage himself has to step up to the plate, basically the embodiment of fine, I'll do it myself. From there, we dive into the villain's millennia-long resume. We see Savage, centuries ago, killing a cave bear barehanded and being revered by Neanderthals as Earth's first meta-human. Later on, he strikes a pact of respect with Darkseid himself in the 13th century, ensuring that Apocalypse and Earth would be the final adversaries in the war for the universe. The guy even fought the Starro race in ancient Babylon. While Savage destroys the invading fleet using the War World's colossal firepower, Nightwing's team focuses on training the rookies back on Earth. The contrast is bizarre. On one side, Savage rewriting human history with blood. On the other, Brion suggesting Hot Lava as his hero name before coming to his senses and accepting Geoforce.
Call me Hot Lava. She called it the Geoforce.
Huh. Geoforce.
All with an almost summer camp vibe. Savage boards the main enemy ship, finds an alien controlled by a Starro, and finishes the monster off. An absolute victory that his elderly daughter, Olympia, wants to record for posterity. But Savage doesn't play to the crowd. To protect his long-term plans, and considering his daughter's mind was already failing due to age, he snaps her neck. The guy literally saved the planet in the morning and executed his own daughter at night, proving his primal instincts remain fully intact. Multiple missions start popping off at the same time, looking like sheer random chaos. Nightwing's team intercepts the League of Shadows trying to steal equipment. The combat is tense, with the villain Mist nearly suffocating Dick until he crystallizes her gaseous form with a chemical spray. During the fight, Halo accesses a new bright white aura that blinds and repels the villain Shade. Cheshire ends up cornered by her own sister, Tigress. When questioned about the daughter she abandoned, Cheshire lays down the hard truth. She will always be an assassin before being a mother. Cold, but honest. In another part of the city, Robin and his team face Clayface and the Mad Hatter, who was using nanotechnology to forcibly mind control metahumans. The clash ends with an entire warehouse blowing up. Meanwhile, Aquaman and other heroes stop Sportsmaster and Abracadabra from hijacking prisoners out of an armored transport. What seemed like an incredibly busy week of coincidences has a name: Batman. We find out that all these attacks were part of a secretly coordinated operation. Batman, Nightwing, Robin, Oracle, Aquaman, Miss Martian, and Wonder Woman have formed a hidden society, basically an anti-light. Working in the shadows, they tracked and dismantled a meta-human trafficking ring run by billionaire Simon Stagg, who was using the Hatter's mind control tech and even a stolen Reach device to build his own army. The plan works flawlessly. Stagg is arrested, and the heroes free the controlled metahumans, with Clayface bizarrely thanking Robin. In the end, the victory leaves a very bitter taste. Wonder Woman questions the morality of what they are doing. They are leading 6 different teams who have absolutely no idea they are pawns on the same chessboard. To defeat the greatest villains on the planet, Earth's greatest heroes decided to act exactly like them, embracing darkness and manipulation. The light keeps moving its pieces on the board, and Vandal Savage sends Lobo to Earth with a specific target in his crosshairs, while the Justice League tries to improve its public relations by announcing a youth center for metahumans. The domestic life of some heroes becomes a target. At Iris West's house, several families gather for a quiet get-together. What they don't know is that Ocean Master is lurking across the street, ready to use the nuclear option with the Trident of Neptune to wipe everyone off the map with a single strike. However, even the Light thinks this is overkill at the moment. Before the villain can do any damage, Lady Shiva shows up and cold-bloodedly executes him. One less problem to worry about, but peace and quiet are nowhere to be found for the main team. At the hideout, Nightwing tests the rookies with a rubber bullet ambush, pointing out that Brion still needs to control his focus. But the real test comes kicking the door down. Lobo lands, ready to kill Forager.
In your case, it proves you need to train for surprise attacks.
The main man's contracted to kill this bug.
The team tries to hold him back, but it's like trying to stop a freight train with bare hands. Lobo impales Halo, who heals shortly after, because that's what she does, and crushes Forager before leaving, thinking he just collected his bounty. But Forager is smart. He only left his shell behind, tricking the intergalactic bounty hunter. Despite their survival, the tactical damage is done. Shiva returns to the Light's base and confirms what they wanted to know. Nightwing really did put together a new team of heroes, and Gretchen Good, the maternal media figure who secretly sits at the villain's table, makes it clear that they already have a plan locked and loaded to deal with these meddling kids. Batman, Katana, and Metamorpho are on a heavy stealth mission in Santa Prisca, sneaking through the jungle to get a closer look at the League of Shadows. While the Bat does the dirty work on the island, civilian life runs its course. Silas Stone promises his son Victor that he will attend his football game, one of those classic promises you just know is doomed to fail. During Nightwing's team training, things get tense. Halo's powers glitch in the middle of an exercise, and Brion keeps demanding answers about his sister Tara. Nightwing asks for patience, which is pretty easy to say when it isn't your family missing at the hands of terrorists. Back in Santa Prisca, the Bat team intercepts a highly valuable conversation. Deathstroke mentions to Cassandra Savage that a girl named Markov couldn't handle the military training and was shipped off to Granny. It's exactly the clue Brion desperately wanted, dropping right into the lap of Batman's investigation. Meanwhile, Victor crushes it on the football field and wins the game, but looking at the bleachers and not seeing his dad ruins any sense of victory. Adding to the roster of dysfunctional families, Will Harper tries to convince Jade to come home, but the assassin decides it's best to stay in the shadows. The infiltration in Santa Prisca spirals out of control when Batman runs face-to-face into Bane. Soon enough, Deathstroke and Shiva join the fray. The team only escapes because Oracle uses the Batplane to blow up the island's defenses, ensuring a dramatic extraction. And, capping off the day's terrible fatherly decisions, Silas Stone misses his son's game to receive a mysterious father box straight from Green Lantern's hands. Victor's frustration with his father reaches a boiling point. He storms into Star Labs to confront Silas, but the timing couldn't be worse. An alien device from the Reach suffers a critical failure and explodes right in the middle of their argument, leaving Victor on the brink of death. In pure desperation, Silas ignores all warnings from the medical team and uses the recently acquired father box to try and save his son's life. A few miles away, Violet and Forager, now using a holographic disguise and going by the wonderful name Fred Bug, face the real battlefield, their first day of high school. They quickly bump into Harper Row, who takes a liking to them them, but Violet starts feeling physically ill. It's not social anxiety, it's a visceral connection to what's happening at the lab. The father box does its healing job, but it reconstructs Victor by turning him into a cyborg. The shock of the mutation, mixed with the aggressive programming of the apocalyptian technology, makes the kid lose control and attack the scientists. Violet's sickness peaks, forcing her to generate a boom tube that drops her right in the middle of Victor's rampage. They clash, but Violet manages to use her healing aura to purge the evil influence from his mind. Free from the machine's rage, Victor realizes what he has become and falls into despair. He begs Violet to get him out of there, blaming his own father for turning him into a freak. Violet, who knows exactly how heavy it is to feel like a monster, doesn't think twice. She opens a portal and takes Victor away, leaving Silas alone in the lab with the devastating weight of his choices.
Let's go. Victor, wait!
On the set of Space Trek 3016, Garfield Logan is giving his all to the performance. Gretchen Good shows up, praising the kid and dropping frighteningly specific information about his mother and godparents until Gar's unbearable stepfather, Steve Dayton, ruins the mood. Gar has a date with Perdita and just wants to bounce as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the team tries to unravel the mystery of Halo. The theory is bizarre, but it makes sense. The soul of a mother box merged with her human body, which explains the miraculous resurrections. Victor hears this and wonders where he fits in, seeing as he's packed to the brim with aggressive alien tech. The answer comes fast. Victor's father Boxside takes control, turning him into a killing machine that ruthlessly attacks the sphere. Halo manages to temporarily calm his system, but Dick makes it clear they need to stick together because the ticking time bomb is still armed. On Gar's date, things go completely off the rails in true Black Mirror style. Perdita lets him test out a pair of Good Studios VR goggles, and the headset injects something straight into his system. Gar falls into a deep trance and his mind turns into a television nightmare. He travels through twisted versions of old TV shows, guided by a monkey emoji as he relives his worst traumas: dead heroes, his mother's accident, and his stepfather's manipulation. Miss Martian enters his mind to rescue him, but surprisingly, Gar doesn't need saving. He puts the pieces together himself and realizes he's been using TV his whole life to escape his grief. More than that, he understands that the monkey god was the one who truly gave him his shape-shifting powers, not just the Martian blood. When he wakes up, the realization hits him like a ton of bricks. Gretchen Good isn't just an eccentric studio executive, she is the villain of the story. The revelation about the Good Studios VR goggles doesn't go unanswered. Nightwing pieces the intel together and discovers that the devices test users for the meta-genie and brainwash the test subjects. Their destination? An underground meta-human fight club in Bialya, and the grand prize of the auction is none other than Tara Markov, Brion's missing sister. While the team heads out for the rescue, Victor stays at the base with Halo and Dr. Helga, and of course, the evil tech in his body decides it's the perfect time for a violent reboot. The father box side takes over and knocks Helga out. Halo has to deal with her own confusing emotions, but she uses this newfound empathy as a driving force to tap into her power and cleanse the evil influence from Victor's system once and for all. No more robotic meltdowns. Over in Bialya, the first rule of the meta-human fight club is to not catch Simon's attention. The heroes go in undercover, and Black Lightning discreetly fries the telepath's brain by sending a shock through the bleacher rails. Clean work. They manage to remove Tara's control chip, leading to an emotional reunion between the Markov siblings. But getting out of there wasn't going to be that simple. The Onslaught team catches wind of the invasion, and chaos ensues. You've got Superboy trading punches with Mammoth, Forager using the invisible bioship to provide cover fire, and even Tara and Brion using their powers together to wipe out the goons. The rescue is an absolute success, and all the captured teens are sent off to a safe center in Taos. Everything seems perfect. Siblings reunited, Victor cured, and the team stronger than ever. Until Tara wakes up in the middle of the night at Will Harper's house, grabs her phone, and sends a text straight to Deathstroke. "I'm in." The girl they risked everything to save is in fact a spy. Out in space, the Justice League investigates a destroyed nth metal refinery on Thanagar. The local commander doesn't even want to talk, but Guy Gardner, in a rare moment of pure usefulness, tracks an ion trail left by the invader's ship. Back on Earth, the war shifts to the media. Aquaman goes public to denounce the Good World Studios VR goggles as meta-human trafficking traps, but Lex Luthor and G. Gordon Godfrey pull off that classic PR juggling act to pin the blame on the League. Gretchen Good even goes on TV playing the innocent victim, blaming a dead former director and promising a recall on the devices. Garfield watches this in disgust, marches right into Gretchen's office, and confronts her directly. She doesn't even blink, making it clear she's untouchable. At the base, the team dynamic continues to evolve. Halo embraces the fact that she doesn't fit into earthly genders. She's just herself, and the team accepts her identity without missing a beat. Gar officially rejoins the squad, and Tara continues playing her double agent role, secretly recording the adults' conversations. Oh, and Victor's healed implants apparently work like a snooping Bluetooth, since he mysteriously knows what Violet is texting Bree on. Meanwhile, the League follows the trail straight to a space fortress called the Orphanage, run by Granny Goodness. It was a trap set by Big Barda, but Granny is so sadistic she activates a torture machine that fries everyone in the room, including Barda herself. Superman pulls her out of range, proving a point about compassion, and destroys the machinery with his heat vision. Granny doesn't let it slide and throws Superman, Wonder Woman, and Hawkwoman into the vacuum of space through a boom tube, fleeing with the orphanage right after. Luckily, Guy Gardner arrives just in time to create a life-saving oxygen bubble.
Showboats, always leaving the hard work for all.
On Earth, Gar looks at his phone, staring at his 16 million followers. The gears turn in his head, and he finally realizes that the battle against this new threat won't be won in the shadows alone. Garfield is filming Space Trek 3016, but the vibe on set is awful. Gretchen Good whispers something to the director, and suddenly the scene has to be reshot. Gar thinks about quitting, but the contract is a perfect trap. If he walks, she'll sue the soul out of him in court. Meanwhile, the team heads to Russia. The mission is to investigate a government meta-human program, the Supreme Soviets. They sneak in quietly, but run face-to-face into Black Manta, Captain Boomerang, and Monsieur Mala. And of course, the villains aren't there to chat. All hell breaks loose. During the brawl, Boomerang throws a cheap pickup line at Halo, using the word proposition. The trigger is immediate. Halo's mind is flooded with a memory from her body's former host, Gabrielle. She remembers accepting a bribe to open the palace doors in Markovia for the King and Queen's assassins. The shock is so intense, she drops her guard and takes a boomerang straight to the chest. Luckily, her healing powers patch her up, but the psychological damage is already done. Amidst the chaos, the Russians arrive and the team opts to surrender to avoid an international diplomatic incident. The crucial detail? Aquaman discovers that Manta and the others aren't acting on their own. They are Task Force X, Amanda Waller's infamous Suicide Squad. She basically blackmails Aquaman. If he exposes the squad, she exposes the team. Checkmate. At the youth center in Taos, Ed Dorado Jr. tries to help the metahumans control their powers, but things go sideways. The Wind Girl, Wendy, completely loses control during training and nearly suffocates everyone. She breaks down in tears, feeling like a monster. To top it all off, back at Artemis's house, Halo harbors the dark secret she just uncovered. She swears Brion and Tara will never know what she did. It's Thanksgiving, and a festive mood takes over the Taos Youth Center with a full-blown festival. Beast Boy shows up with his girlfriend, Queen Perdita, trying to keep a low profile, which is almost impossible when you're a green TV star. In Star City, the dinner at Artemis's house has a completely different vibe. The chemistry between her and Will is obvious to anyone with eyes. But Paula, Artemis's mother, kills the mood. She pulls her daughter aside and gives her a reality check, reminding her of what happened to Wally and Barbara Gordon. Paula begs Artemis to quit the hero life and have a normal life with Will and little Leon. The message is harsh. You don't need a mask to help people. Back in Taos, the festival turns into a nightmare. Everyone starts getting brutal stomach pains and Count Vertigo appears out of nowhere, kidnapping Perdita in a helicopter. Gar, Bart, and Blue Beetle go after him full throttle.
Carabast girl, that was pathetic.
What do we do?
They chase the chopper to a ruined city, but their attacks have no effect. That's because Vertigo isn't even there. It's all a telepathic illusion cast by Simon and Devastation. Like stage magicians, they created the perfect distraction to make everyone look the wrong way. The real attack is happening at the center. The Onslaught team has invaded the festival to kidnap the unconscious metahumans. The heroic teens make it back just in time, and the hand-to-hand combat is fast and efficient. They take down Onslaught and save the hostages. In the end, Gar uses the news cameras cameras to send a positive message in favor of metahumans, mastering the media game. Meanwhile, the past comes back to haunt Halo. Unable to handle the guilt, she confesses to Dr. Helga Jace about the bribery memory in Markovia. Helga promises to keep her secret, but the second Violet turns her back, the doctor makes a suspicious phone call asking for help. Red flag. Garfield is sick and tired of watching Lex Luthor win the narrative war against the Justice League. He gathers the team and puts an idea on the table. They need a public group, a team of young heroes that doesn't ask for permission, breaks the rules, and inspires people through social media. Kaldor hesitates at first, but ultimately agrees. A new division is born, a public squad ironically funded by Gar's abusive contract with Gretchen Good. They don't have to wait long for a trial by fire. Reach warships appear out of nowhere, attacking a city in Brooklyn. Aquaman jumps into the fight first, but quickly gets swatted away by the ships. That's when the new team crashes the party. Beast Boy, Kid Flash, Static, Blue Beetle, and Wonder Girl start taking down the ships one by one, all while teenagers record them on their phones and live stream it. It's pure superhero guerrilla marketing. The ship's pilots turn out to be Intergang members, but before they can celebrate, a Reach mothership rises from the ocean floor and aims its weapons at the city. To make matters worse, the local mayor, who is clearly in Luthor's pocket, threatens to arrest the heroes. Ignoring the bureaucracy, the team breaches the warship. Blue Beetle overrides the controls from the inside, and they pull off a safe crash landing in a park lake. When the mayor tries to slap cuffs on them again, the local sheriff throws the Good Samaritan law in his face and lets them go. The crowd goes wild. Gar looks at the cameras, gives a speech about not answering to corrupt politicians, and makes the name official. They are the Outsiders. The hashtag #WeAreAllOutsiders breaks the internet. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Away from the cameras, Tara sends a text to Deathstroke confirming her position as a mole inside the Outsiders. And, behind the scenes, Aquaman and Batman's covert group reveal they manipulated the entire Brooklyn attack specifically to give Gar's team the spotlight. At the end of the day, everyone is being played like chess pieces. The Outsiders' popularity is through the roof, but things behind the scenes are far from glamorous. While Beast Boy and the squad prepare to investigate a lab at a base in Cuba, Helga Jace drops an absolute bombshell on Violet. She is dying. Ironically, the girl's healing powers aren't regenerating her cells properly, and at this rate, she only has a few months to live. Helga promises to find a solution, but Violet decides to carry this burden alone. And how do teenagers handle bad news? By making terrible decisions. Violet skips training, goes to the beach to get wasted with Harper Row, fires a gun into the air, ignores her boyfriend's texts, and they even share a kiss. It all ends with the police detaining the girls and Miss Martian having to pick Violet up from the precinct with that classic disappointed look on her face. Far away from there, in Cuba, Clarion is doing what he does best, causing absolute chaos. The Witch Boy has literally created a giant meat monster by fusing several metahuman teenagers together. Pure Cronenberg-level nightmare fuel. The Outsiders step in, and Beast Boy gets his big tactical moment when he turns into a mouse to bait Clarion's cat, and, a split second later, shifts into an elephant, crushing the feline against the wall. Zatanna sneaks in to provide the magical backup they were missing. She frees the kids from the meat monster, suppresses their metagene marks, and, as a bonus, sends Clarion straight into the Tower of Fate, where the villain gets trapped in an endless loop of dead-end doors. Beast Boy rescues a girl who grew gills during the bizarre experiment, and when the Cuban police try to arrest the heroes, the rescued teens themselves form a human shield shouting, "We are all outsiders!" The video hits the web.
And we're just trying to do the right thing for kids like us.
Todos somos outsiders.
We're all outsiders.
The team is no longer just a superhero squad, it's a global movement. So global that Ed Dorado Jr. asks to join the roster, and the crew accepts him on the spot. Lex Luthor decides to host a climate conference in Bunda, Africa, which sounds about as natural as a shark promoting veganism. And of course, it's a trap. During the event, a rebel group attacks, and the Outsiders take the bait, swooping in to save the day. But Luthor already had the Justice League on standby. Once Kid Flash's team secures the area and the Flash arrives to wrap things up, Luthor uses the cameras to slaughter the teens' image, branding them as illegal, reckless invaders. The PR stunt works so well that the heroes' mentors and parents show up at the HQ demanding answers. Jay Garrick and Ed Dorado Sr. don't want to see the new generation meet a tragic end pretend like Wally West, sparking a heated argument. The mood at the base was already awful, and Violet decides to make it worse. She finally comes clean to Brianne and Tara. It was her past identity, Gabrielle, who took the bribe and opened the palace doors for the assassin who killed their parents. Brianne, understandably, storms out in a rage. Tara seizes the drama and fires off a text to Deathstroke, letting him know the team is crumbling from the inside out. Even with their parents forbidding it, Beast Boy, Blue Beetle, and Static, who are already legally adults, head to Ireland to rescue a little girl kidnapped by Professor Ivo's robot monkeys. The rescue video goes viral, forcing news anchor G. Gordon Godfrey to admit to Luther's face, on live television, that his plan to smear the teens was a miserable failure. The Outsider's popularity is now bulletproof. But here comes the gut punch. The rescue in Ireland? It was all staged. Batman's anti-light faction orchestrated every single detail. Oracle planted the distress call, Robin deployed the robots, and Batman and Miss Martian played the roles of the kidnapped girl and her father. Wonder Woman is horrified to realize they are creating fake news and crossing major ethical lines in their war against Luthor. The heroes are playing the exact same dirty game as the villains. Victor Stone's situation spirals completely out of control. The Father Box technology goes into aggressive mode, threatening to devour his body and turn him into walking hardware. He passes out in the middle of the street, but Forager finds him and rushes him to the base. The diagnosis is brutal. The only hope of saving him is to use the Mobius chair, which belongs to Metron. Superboy, Black Lightning, and Forager travel across the universe to the Source Wall to track down the arrogant new god. Metron has zero interest in helping, but his scientific curiosity to see a Father Box swallow a human alive wins out, and he agrees to the trip. Violet has run away from the base, leaving only a goodbye letter. She travels to Dabar to meet the mother and uncle of her former identity, Gabrielle. Believing she is on her last days, she tells them the brutal truth in search of closure. The uncle snaps at the confession, but the mother chooses forgiveness, giving the girl the peace she so desperately needed. And speaking of confronting trauma, Miss Martian corners Harper Row about the bruises on her neck. Left with no way out, Harper finally admits that her father beats her and her brother, and Magan takes her straight to Child Protective Services. In Atlantis, Aquaman finds a home for the guild girl they saved in Cuba, hearing her say that bad men don't feel bad for lying, which eases his own guilt for keeping secrets from the team. Back at HQ, Metron arrives with his chair and crosses his arms to watch Victor die. Superboy, having exactly zero patience for arrogant deities, simply rips Metron out of the chair by brute force, and Black Lightning pins him to the floor with pure electricity. They throw Victor onto the chair, which sucks out all the evil energy and spits the Father Box's soul right out. Victor is saved, and after carrying so much resentment, finally embraces his dad. The team reunites at the base, relieved. Everything seems fine, until Tara steps out onto the balcony to make her mandatory call to Deathstroke. Only this time, she lies. She says there's nothing to report and smiles up at the sky. Maybe the team's resident spy is finally switching sides.
Yes, I know my report is late, but that's because I've nothing to report. It's been quiet here. Tara out.
Dick Grayson and Jefferson Pierce decide to break into Gretchen Good's mansion while she's at a movie premiere. A classic infiltration, support from Oracle, everything by the book, until the security system swallows them both into a portal, and they drop off the map for a whole day. Aquaman and Ween take over the rescue, and their tactic is a little different. Ring the doorbell and ask to come in. Surprisingly, it works. Meanwhile, real life doesn't stop. Karen Beecher goes into labor, but the baby is born with a heart condition. With no time for snowed-in surgeons, Karen shrinks down and goes inside her own daughter, operating on the baby in true inner space style. A brilliant solution, but one that makes her question the limits of genetic manipulation. Back at the mansion, Calder and Wind are thrown into the X-Pit, a torture dimension where they find Dick and Jeff completely catatonic. Ween's Atlantean magic holds the line, but Gretchen decides it's time to destroy their mother box with an apocalyptic laser. The mother box's pain resonates, alerting Victor Stone and Halo. Victor opens a boom tube, and the Outsiders drop into the middle of the room like the perfect cavalry. Halo not only heals the mother box, but also uses an ancient language of the new gods to erase Dick and Jeff's brainwashing. Oracle sends in a missile drone just to ensure a dramatic exit, and the heroes escape. Brion and Violet finally make up, but behind the scenes, Helga Jace sends a suspicious message to the Ultra-Humanite, and to top it off, Gretchen calls Darkseid with news. She has found the anti-life equation. Dick Grayson is burning up with a fever from the X-Pit, surrounded by the Bat family, but the real fever breaking here is the web of lies. Jefferson Pierce finally connects the dots and realizes Batman's secret squad has been manipulating everyone. When he lays it out on the table, Garfield explodes upon discovering that even the Outsiders' missions were PR stunts orchestrated in the shadows. The heroes begin to tear themselves apart from the inside, giving the villains exactly what they wanted. Speaking of which, Helga Jace finally drops the mask. She kidnaps Violet, Brion, and Tara, handing the girl over on a silver platter to Gretchen and the Ultra-Humanite. Gretchen throws Violet into the X-Pit to test the anti-life equation, and just for good measure, shoves Helga in too. Under the pit's influence, Helga confesses everything. She forced the metagene on Brion and Tara, and tried to kill Violet, all to create her own bizarre family of superheroes. A heavy confession at the worst possible moment. Tara manages to remove her control chip, frees her brother, and the two go on the offensive. Gretchen and the Ultra-Humanite flee, taking Violet with them. The siblings return to the already fractured team, and drop the bombshell about Helga's betrayal. Jefferson, exhausted from so many backstabs, walks away for good, and Tara, she calmly calls Deathstroke, awaiting new orders. The Mole keeps digging. The Justice League mounts a massive attack on the orphanage. Guy, Hal, John, Wonder Woman, and Superman arrive like an armada ready for war. But it's all a trap. Granny Goodness simply activates the anti-life equation and enslaves the universe's biggest heavyweights in a matter of seconds. On Earth, the remaining team is desperate to find Violet. Out of nowhere, Vandal Savage calls and hands over her coordinates. Why? Because villains love sabotaging each other's plans. Superboy opens the boom tube and the squad charges in. During the fight against hordes of parademons, Nightwing suffers from the effects of his fever and starts to hallucinate. Suddenly, Wally West is fighting alongside him, in perfect sync, just like old times.
Well then, KF, looks like today's the day.
It's a bittersweet moment the entire team feels through their psychic link, a cruel reminder of who they've lost. Geoforce, Terra, and Forager manage to reach the control room, only to find Granny Goodness accompanied by a completely mind-controlled Martian Manhunter and Superman, who toss the kids aside effortlessly. The rest of the team storms the room, but it's too late. Granny forces Violet to activate the machine, triggering the anti-life equation in a wave that sweeps across the cosmos. The heroes fall, free will is gone, and Granny gleefully announces the dawn of the Age of Darkseid. Victor Stone finally begins to understand the extent of his new powers after sitting in Metron's chair. He manages to intercept data on the web with his mind, and discovers that Gretchen Good's studio has hidden Apocalypton technology. It's the perfect cue for the Outsiders to raid the place in search of Halo. But breaking into an intergalactic villain's lair is never simple. The floor literally opens up beneath them, and the group plunges into the X-Pit, falling straight into the ghost dimension. The agony is immediate. El Dorado tries to teleport Heim out, but the Blue Beetle armor retracts in self-defense, making the situation even worse. Gretchen decides to play with her prey. She isolates Beast Boy in a red cubic arena and offers a deal. If he beats her one-on-one, everyone goes free. Beast Boy accepts and gives it his all. He turns into a rhino, a gorilla, a snake, and gets beaten in every form. Gretchen simply pummels the kid without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, Victor projects his mind into the Overlord's mother box. In cyberspace, he reverts to his human form, but is hunted and impaled by a digital version of the villain. Except Victor has his Matrix moment. He realizes none of it is real. Calling back his cybernetic form, he blows the Overlord up from the inside out. With the machine destroyed, the illusion falls. The team captures Gretchen, but she manages to teleport away. Victor tracks the signal and guides them straight to the real problem. Gretchen was fusing back together with Granny Goodness. Worse still, the Justice League and the entire team are there, hypnotized and under the control of the anti-life equation. Knowing Halo is the key, Victor shoots and destroys the collar controlling her. Freed, Halo activates all her auras simultaneously, glowing like a rainbow and breaking the mind control over everyone. Out of options, Granny flees. Back at the base, the mood is victorious. Victor is officially accepted into the team and finally adopts the codename everyone has been waiting for, Cyborg. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor just smiles as he looks looks at the poll numbers. His game isn't over yet. As Luther moves his pieces behind the scenes, things in Star City take on a brutal emotional weight. It's Valentine's Day, and Will prepares a romantic dinner for Artemis. Things heat up, they kiss, but Artemis breaks down. Guilt hits her hard. She can't move on because she never had the chance to say goodbye to Wally. Desperate for closure, she seeks out Zatanna and demands to be sent to Limbo to see her ex-boyfriend. Zatanna warns her of the risks, but casts the spell. Artemis wakes up in a perfect world. She and Wally are living together. They have a dog, and she's pregnant. It's the idyllic life that was stolen from them.
Missed you. Oh, very fast.
Wow.
In a bizarre interlude, Metron appears out of nowhere, pulls Violet, Victor, and little Leon into outer space just to call them his grandchildren, since they derive from his boxes, and warn them about Darkseid, sending them back right after. A moment of pure cosmic eccentricity before we return to the drama. In Limbo, Artemis's time is running out. Zatanna warns her that the sun is going to rise and she needs to come back, or she'll be trapped there forever. The perfect world begins to crumble. The house, the dog, the baby, everything fades away. All that remains is her, Wally, and the exit door. In one of the show's hardest scenes, Wally tells her to live, find love again, and move on. She gives him one last kiss and walks through the door. Back in the real world, the truth is revealed. Zatanna doesn't have the power to revive the dead. Limbo was just a telepathic construct created by Magan to give Artemis the safe space she needed to grieve and let go of the past. A lie, yes, but a necessary lie that heals her. She returns home and with a clear mind, agrees with Will that they work better just as family. Far away, political tensions boil over. Baron Bedlam escapes from prison in Markovia. King Gregor's exile is threatened, and Brion knows exactly who to call to solve the problem: the Outsiders. The invasion of Markovia is absolute. Batman, the team, and the Outsiders coordinate a massive strike to take down Baron Bedlam. On the other side of the world, Lex Luthor and Deathstroke watch it all with popcorn in hand, just waiting for the moment Terra betrays Beast Boy, ensuring the disaster that will justify a global metahuman registry. During the showdown at the palace, the opportunity arises. Terra lifts a massive boulder over Beast Boy's head. Deathstroke gives the order, but before she can crush the Outsiders' leader, Tigress drops the bomb. They always knew she was a spy. Batman read Deathstroke's micro-expressions months ago. They just wanted to give Terra the chance to choose her true family. With tears in her eyes, Terra throws the boulder aside and hugs Tigress. Cyborg hacks her communicator and exposes Luthor and Deathstroke's alliance live to Black Lightning. It seems like an absolute victory, until Brion steps in. Bazovi, a metahuman from the light who manipulates people's worst impulses, goads the prince. When Bedlam tries to flee and taunts that the fight will never end, Brion solves the problem permanently. He forces molten lava down Bedlam's throat, a true fatality in the public square. The crowd goes wild and hails him as king. The heroes watch in disgust. Completely corrupted, Brion takes the crown, demands that Terra and Halo stand by his side, and upon being rejected by both, banishes all heroes from his country. Luthor thinks he can still capitalize on the chaos, but Black Lightning exposes him at the UN, and to ensure the villain's downfall, Superboy steps up to the mic and reveals to the whole world that he is a clone made from the DNA of Superman and Lex himself. Backed into a corner, Luthor resigns. Back at the base, it's time to air out the dirty laundry. Nightwing, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman confess they had been manipulating events in the shadows through their secret society, the Anti-Light. Acknowledging they've lost their moral authority, they step down from leadership. Black Lightning is elected the new leader of the Justice League and imposes a single rule: no more secrets. The status quo shifts completely. The teams restructure, Superboy and Magan reconcile, and the wounds begin to heal. And in some random diner, a waitress serves the heroes coffee while sporting a very specific Legion of Superheroes flight ring. The future is already keeping an eye on them. The tension between Magan and Connor finally reaches its breaking point. She returns the engagement ring, making it clear that there's no point in getting married if he doesn't trust her. Connor, realizing he messed up, apologizes. The fight ends with a kiss and the engagement back on track. A year later, it's time for celebration. Their bags are packed to travel to Mars and hold the religious ceremony with Magan's family. Garfield, Tara, Violet, and the rest of the team are there to see them off. Gar tries to hide it, but he clearly needs a break from the Outsiders and from his own girlfriend. What no one notices is that, as the bioship takes off, a mysterious figure wearing a ring with an L insignia watches from afar. The trip is smooth, and they are welcomed by Emery, Magan's sister, who is spearheading an interplanetary Zeta Tube project. Emery even tries shapeshifting into the lead from "Hello, Megan" to please her, delivering that classic moment of secondhand embarrassment between siblings. But the sightseeing on Mars ends quickly. During a tour, Gar and Connor suffer a telepathic attack from a group of radical Martians. Upon arriving at Magan's parents' house, they find racist graffiti on the walls. The political climate on the planet is hanging by a thread. The king was recently assassinated. Relations between the different Martian races have crumbled, and the prime suspect stoking the hatred is Macomb, Magan's extremist brother, who now goes by Ma'alefa'ak. In the midst of this political chaos, the Zeta Tube is finally ready. Martian Manhunter steps in for the first official test, but as soon as he vanishes, the tube violently explodes. Magan tries to reach her uncle's mind, but finds nothing. John is gone.
True hero! Recognized. Martian Manhunter. Can't feel his mind touch.
The dust from the Zeta Tube has barely settled and panic sets in. Martian authorities waste no time and arrest Ma'alefa'ak, accusing him of sabotage. Magan knows her brother is a dangerous extremist, but the math doesn't add up. He was under surveillance and simply didn't have the physical time to plant a bomb. She tries interrogating him in his cell, but he only fires back with sarcasm. What the team on Mars doesn't know is that Martian Manhunter survived. He arrived on Earth unharmed, which means the explosion was rigged to happen right after his transport. Before Cyborg can open a rescue portal, the Martian communication satellite also explodes in space. Magan, Connor, and Gar are officially stranded on a hostile planet, and hiding in the shadows, three mysterious figures, Legionnaire Saturn Girl, Chameleon Boy, and Phantom Girl, watch their every move. Trying to keep his mind occupied, Connor accepts Prince Jim's request to investigate the king's murder. They visit a sacred river to cool off, but the peace is short-lived. A rock slide buries the group. It's a clumsy maneuver by the mysterious trio to get their attention, but it backfires. Away from the sunlight and pinned under tons of rock, Connor starts to bleed, showing just how vulnerable he is out there. As the heroes try to survive their own pre-wedding trip, Ma'alefa'ak proves the rabbit hole goes much deeper. He secretly meets with Desaad, who brings a little gift straight from Apocalypse, a genetic virus capable of wiping out entire Martian races. Garfield is falling apart. Far from home and isolated, he spends his time looking at pictures of the outsiders, clearly dealing with a heavy load of PTSD that's about to explode. The wedding preparations force the group to split up. The women head to a crystal cave to set up the ceremonial canopy. It's there that the pent-up resentment between Magan and her sister Emery boils over. Emery throws it in her face that Magan is ashamed of being Martian, and the argument gets so heated that their telepathic rage shatters the canopy's crystal. But like any good family fight, laying all the cards on the table clears the air. They reach an understanding and start the work over together. Meanwhile, the men go to build the altar near a river of lava. The extreme heat forces Gar to assume a Martian form to withstand it, but his mind, already fragile from the telepathic attack days prior, collapses. He hallucinates that Geoforce is attacking Connor. In blind panic, Gar rams into Connor, knocking him out against a rock, and decides to drag his unconscious friend to the surface, thinking he's saving him. The surface is being swept by a sandstorm, and Connor starts suffocating without solar radiation. Fortunately, the rescue team arrives right on time, guided by someone who looks exactly like Gar. Meanwhile, lost in the storm, Gar hears Magan's voice in his mind, calming him down and helping him process the guilt he feels for failing Breon. Once everyone is back to safety, Gar thanks Magan for the telepathic help. There's just one catch. She says she didn't do anything. The ones who took Gar's form and entered his mind were Chameleon Boy and Saturn Girl. The mysterious heroes from the future finally took action, simply because it was the right thing to do. With the immediate danger handled and Gar's mental health finally being addressed, the altar is completed. Connor and Magan, relieved, celebrate the moment with a kiss. Magan, Connor, and Gar say goodbye to the bioship, which is finally retiring. It's a bittersweet moment, but their rest is short-lived.
I can't thank you enough for everything.
Behind the scenes, Ma'alefa'ak plants a gene bomb beneath the Martian royal balcony. He has a clear agenda, and not even Magan begging for a reconciliation makes the guy change his mind. Meanwhile, Connor, Gar, and Magan go full detective mode to investigate the king's assassination. They notice the math doesn't add up. 7 servants entered the palace that night, but only 6 left. They track down the suspect and discover it was a shape-shifting alien in disguise. Connor notices a magic residue at the crime scene, and the pieces finally click into place. The killer is the priestess. It's basically a Romeo and Juliet situation, but with Martians. She loved Prince Jem. The king forbade the romance because of the caste system. Her magic got out of hand, and the king ended up dead by accident. She is arrested, and Jem realizes that this class system is a tragedy waiting to happen. But the real danger lies beneath the floor. An invisible saboteur attaches a metal box to Ma'alefa'ak's bomb. Connor uses his X-ray vision and tears through the floor to investigate. It's apocalyptic tech containing a virus, and to make matters worse, traces of kryptonite. Connor does what heroes do. He orders everyone to evacuate, punches through the rock, and plunges with the bomb straight into a lava flow. He crushes the device, destroying the virus, but the explosion goes off. Superman and Martian Manhunter arrive just in time to sense the kryptonite in the air. Magan tries a telepathic connection, but there is nothing, just the void. Connor is gone, one of the team's most devastating losses, leaving Magan crying alone at the altar of her own wedding. The weight of Connor's death hits Earth like a meteor. Artemis finally seemed to be getting her life on track, teaching at the university, dating, and pulling her shift as Tigress at night. But when she walks into her house and sees Will, Dick, and Calder waiting in the dark, she doesn't need any words to know something terrible has happened. The grief breaks her focus and unearths old ghosts, specifically her sister Jade. We see flashes of their toxic childhood under Sportsmaster's roof, proving exactly why Jade ran away and left Artemis behind. Artemis knows their mother Paula still keeps in touch with her runaway daughter, but before a family reunion can happen, Artemis realizes she's being followed. Arsenal and Arrowette ambush the stalker, who reveals herself as Onyx Adams. Onyx claims she came to warn them about Cassandra Savage, who is allegedly about to fake a defection from the League of Shadows to act as a spy. Right at that moment, Cassandra steps out of the shadows, missing an arm and covered in scars, accusing Onyx of being the real liar. It's the Spider-Man pointing meme, highly trained assassin edition. Unsure who to trust, Tigress decides to transport them both to the vault. On the way, the Shadows ambush the convoy. Amid the chaos, both Cassandra and Onyx break free and surprisingly help the heroes fend off the attack. This makes it impossible to figure out who the mole is. At the vault, the team's consensus is to trust neither of them, but Artemis still holds out hope. And speaking of returns, Jade finally shows up at the Harper's house, expecting to find their mother, but runs into Artemis waiting for her instead. Face to face, Artemis gives it to her sister straight. She needs Jade's expertise to break the 2 defectors and find out who the real spy is. Jade, as usual, couldn't care less, until Artemis plays her trump card. The League of Shadows knows where they live, which means little Leon is in the crosshairs. That gets Cheshire's attention, while Gar sinks into a severe depression at the base, ignoring missions and watching Superboy tribute videos on his phone. Things heat up at the vault. The Shadows' mental training blocks telepathy, so everything rides on Jade's interrogation. Onyx claims she left the Shadows because Deathstroke and Lady Shiva ruined the organization. Cassandra, on the other hand, says she fled because her immortal father, Vandal Savage, lied about her mother and murdered her sister. Both stories are tragic enough to ring true. Jade's solution? Kill them both just to be safe. Pure assassin diplomacy. Before they can debate this extreme human resources policy, the security cameras cut out. Black Spider and a brute named Rictus storm the place. An all-out brawl takes over the vault, and just when things seemed manageable, Lady Shiva herself appears and knocks out Orphan.
The legendary Croc sisters.
Shiva delivers a blunt ultimatum. Tigress has 24 hours to bring Cassandra Savage to Santa Prisca alone, or Orphan dies. The stakes go through the roof. Onyx insists on tagging along to watch Artemis's back, while Jade decides she's had her fill of family drama and disappears. With no time to lose, Tigress, Cassandra, and Onyx board the supercycle and fly straight into the trap. Ma'alefa'ak is bragging about the terror he spread on Mars until a furious Magan shows up demanding answers for Connor's death. The plot twist? He had no idea what kryptonite was and opens his mind to prove it telepathically. M'gann is devastated, realizing she doesn't have a villain to blame, and breaks down crying in the Martian Manhunter's arms while her brother bails through a boom tube. With no ties left on Mars, M'gann packs her bags and leaves with John and her sister Emery in an atmosphere of utter mourning. On Earth, Tigress, Onyx, and Cassandra Savage are infiltrating Santa Prisca in full stealth mode to rescue Orphan. Oracle warns over the comms that one of the defectors stole leaked data, but Tigress decides to ignore it and stick to the plan. At the same time, Lady Shiva is giving Orphan that classic toxic mother lecture and shows her a video of the Joker. The clown prince of crime is pissed because Vandal Savage stole his joke about senseless violence. As a protest, he tries to blow up the UN, but the Bat family ruins the party. Back in the jungle, Onyx puts a knife to Savage's throat, and the truth comes out. Savage's amputated arm was just an illusion spell. Out of nowhere, the arm appears, releasing a cloud of infiltrator bots. Total mayhem ensues. Cheshire shows up dropping ninja smoke to save Tigress and Onyx's skin, and the trio rushes to Orphan's cell. But the joy is short-lived. Shade, Shiva, and an army of shadows teleport into the hallway, cornering everyone. It's surrender or die. Surrounded in the Santa Prisca cell, Tigress's team gets an ultimatum from Lady Shiva. She keeps Orphan, Onyx, and Cheshire, and Tigress can walk away. To buy time, Tigress strikes up a conversation with Cassandra Savage, who proudly confesses that her whole tragic backstory was just an act to steal the League's data and hand Orphan over on a silver platter. But while the villains do the classic revealing monologue, Orphan picks her locks and kills the lights. The brawl in the dark is brutal. Orphan rips off Rictus's cybernetic limbs. Cheshire depressurizes Black Spider's tank, and Shiva drives her sword into Tigress's leg. When all seems lost, Shade opens a portal, dumps the heroes on a beach, and announces he's quitting the shadows. The escape only really works because Orphan has a final showdown with her mother. She impales Shiva and nearly takes her head off, but remembers the mercy she learned from Batgirl and backs down, allowing the group to flee on the supercycle. Far from this carnage, it's absolutely heartbreaking at the Kent farm. Clark and Lois have to explain the concept of death to little Johnny, because the kid still thinks Connor is coming over to play. It's impossible not to feel the weight of Superman's guilt, as he breaks down in tears with Lois over arriving on Mars too late. Meanwhile, Cheshire keeps running from herself. She flies to Infinity Island ready for suicide by combat against the Sensei, but Artemis interferes. Onyx is also there, and the former leaders of the League of Assassins, Sensei and Ra's al Ghul, offer something unexpected, a real home for the two to heal from their brainwashing, without manipulation. Artemis surprises everyone and agrees. The sisters finally embrace, and Cheshire admits that, for the first time, she likes hearing that Artemis will never give up on her. The universe has rules, and when the Lords of Order and Chaos lose their balance, things tend to fall apart. In New York, Zatanna tries to keep order by training Tracy, Khalid, and Mary Marvel against some underworld trolls. It's a hands-on class where Zatanna hands out scoldings and advice, showing that magic requires more brains than brawn. But the lesson plan changes fast when a mystical pulse sweeps the planet, setting off alarms for everyone. Even Vandal Savage, a new Lord of Chaos, has landed on Earth. The entity turns a giant crystal into a golem named Flaw and takes the form of a creepy little blonde girl named Child. To celebrate her arrival, she decides to study human anatomy from the inside, light stuff. Zatanna and her students go investigate the magic trail with Madame Xanadu's help and end up at the blood-painted jewelry store. Clarion himself also shows up, highly offended that they're trespassing on his turf. What follows is a chaotic magical brawl. Mary uses the strength of Hercules to smash Clarion into a wall, and Khalid focuses on the weak spot, the cat, Tikal. Clarion starts fading from existence and in a fit of rage, creates dozens of clones to strangle the heroes. They only survive because Child calls Clarion for a forced meeting via an unbearable sonic wave. The Witch Boy grumbles like a teenager whose video game got turned off mid-match, gathers his clones, and vanishes. Amidst all this cosmic chaos, we catch a glimpse of Beast Boy's silent, real struggle, completely sinking into depression and buying sleeping pills. And on top of a frozen mountain, the Phantom Stranger pays Vandal Savage a visit, reminding the Immortal of the ancient pact he made with Clarion. Clarion. The tables have turned, and Chaos has a new boss. Vandal Savage decides to open the history books, and the truth about ancient Atlantis is much darker than it seems. The sinking of the continent wasn't a random tragedy, but a calculated plan between Savage and Clarion to force the evolution of an underwater civilization. To them, breaking the world was just a chess move. In the present, the Phantom Stranger drags Zatanna and her students to Roanoke to witness the price of this millennia-old alliance. A new, disturbing Lord of Chaos named Childe has descended to Earth with a mission to replace Clarion. The reason? The other lords are tired of seeing Clarion act as Vandal Savage's lapdog for 12,000 years. The beatdown Clarion takes is humiliating. Even when he manages to slice Childe in half with an energy sword, she just laughs, reconstructs herself, and summons a giant fire snake while magical chaos destroys the East Coast. The weight of grief keeps breaking the rest of the team. In space, Emery's teasing finally makes M'gann burst into tears and laughter, accepting that she doesn't know how to live without Connor. On Earth, Garfield sinks deeper into sleeping pills, completely disconnected from reality. Back to the fight, Zatanna's students manage to recruit Jason Blood, bringing the demon Atrigon to the battlefield. Atrigon actually manages to incinerate Childe to the bone with Hellfire, but the villain simply regenerates from her own eyeball. Running out of patience, Childe rips out a massive chunk of the Earth's crust and drops it on Clarion, wiping out the area and nearly drowning Zatanna in the process. The situation spirals so out of control that Savage knocks on Dr. Fate's door with a very blunt warning. Clarion is a weapon they learned how to aim, but Childe is an uncontainable apocalypse. And just to be safe, Savage begins evacuating his inner circle to the war world. The escalating chaos forces Nabu himself to reflect on his origins. Millennia ago, he was Savage's son in Babylon, until he was killed thanks to Clarion's intervention with an alien Starro. It was this death that led the Lords of Order to fuse his soul with the Helmet of Fate. Desperate for help, Zatanna and her students breach the Tower of Fate, but Nabu refuses to intervene in the Lords of Chaos brawl. Instead, he decides to test the sorceress's pupils, throwing them into brutal, isolated psychological illusions. Tracy finds herself in a bizarre theater where she has to fight her own insecurities, materialized as condescending marionettes of her friends. Khalid nearly drowns in a mental conflict that forces him to choose between his family's religion, medical science, and magic, until he realizes he doesn't have to choose, merging all three. Meanwhile, Mary faces none other than Sergeant Marvel, her super-powered self. She rejects the corruption of absolute power and absorbs her counterpart without losing her own identity. Outside the magical realm, Garfield's freefall continues. He simply sleeps on the couch through the Outsider's mission alerts, ignores Stargirl's concern, and goes back to a room full of pill bottles.
Hey, Beast Boss! Have you been sleeping this whole time?
What? No.
Inside the helmet, Zatara's soul tries to teach Nabu a moral lesson. He argues that true order doesn't stem from a lone hero's isolation, but from cooperation, and insists that Nabu listen to Zatanna. The epiphany arrives, but perhaps too late. Clarion appears desperate at the tower's door, begging for sanctuary. He barely has time to ring the doorbell before Flaw, Childe's crystal golem, grabs the cat, Tikal. With a single swift motion, Flaw snaps the feline's neck. Without his anchor to the mortal plane, Clarion's physical body disintegrates into magical flames, leaving Earth entirely at Childe's mercy. With Clarion out of the picture, Childe wastes no time. She sends a single spark of fire that instantly reduces the imposing Tower of Fate to rubble. In desperation, Mary steals life magic from her own teammates to attempt a counterattack. It's a shock to see the girl cross that line, and even worse to see that her effort doesn't leave a scratch on the villain. Dr. Fate is thrown through the ruins, and his helmet suffers a visible crack. Meanwhile, Clarion didn't really die, but became pure chaotic energy. Desperately needing a new physical anchor, he does what any demonic entity would do. He possesses a yellow school bus full of kids. Stuck in the vehicle's dashboard, he starts teleporting the bus across various dimensions and parts of the globe, nearly running over Superman and Beast Boy along the way, in a blind search for heroes who can help him. Speaking of Beast Boy, Hollywood's patience with Garfield finally runs out. After forgetting his lines on the set of Space Trek and acting like a zombie, the director hands his script to another actor. Gar doesn't argue, he just turns his back and walks off the show. The whole world turns into a war zone. The Justice League, the Outsiders, and basically any hero who can cast a spell scatter across the planet to contain the monstrous pillars of fire raised by Child. Fate, Zatanna, and the Sentinels track the villain to the North Pole for the final showdown. Zatanna and her students channel all their magic into Dr. Fate, who unleashes a colossal cosmic blast. It's the kind of attack that would end any season, but when the dust settles, Child is perfectly intact, smiling. She traps Fate in a massive block of ice and sings that she's going to annihilate all life on Earth. Clarion's school bus finally parks in the middle of the battlefield at the exact moment all seems lost, and inside the cracked helmet, Zatara understands the gravity of the situation. He knows that to save Zatanna and stop the apocalypse, Dr. Fate will have to consume every last drop of his life force. The magic dust has barely settled and the situation is already pure chaos. Literally. To face the new Lord of Chaos, Child, Dr. Fate, and Zatanna realize they need to ally with Clarion himself. The problem? Without his cat Tikal, Clarion is anchored to a school bus full of terrified kids. It's basically the Magic School Bus, but a horror movie version. They head to an animal shelter to find a new familiar. After rejecting several cats, a kitten chooses Clarion, the chosen name, Tikal. Super original. With the feline in tow, Clarion abandons the bus, assumes his human form, and the magic squad heads to the ruins of the Tower of Fate. The battle against Child and her golem, Flaw, is brutal. Desperate for more power, Mary starts leeching the life force from everything around her, including her allies, exuding a dark energy that would make any villain proud. Zatanna shuts that down immediately. The one who saves the day is Tracy, using a bad luck hex to exploit Flaw's weak point. The golem shatters. Child loses her power source, reverts to her diamond form, and disappears into the sky. Clarion, with a giant hole in his chest, just shoves his new cat in there and walks away like it's a normal Tuesday. While magic saves the world, things in the real world fall apart. Garfield is drowning in severe depression. Perdita tries to help, brings him food, tries to talk, but ends up stumbling upon his sleeping pills. Gar rejects any support and kicks her out of his room, destroying their relationship and isolating himself for good. It's heavy, and the show doesn't try to sugarcoat it. Back in Salem, victory comes with a price. Mary demands to be rewarded with the Helmet of Fate, but Zatanna rejects her for being dangerously power-hungry. Zatanna's real plan goes into action. She, her father, Khalid, and Tracy will take turns wearing the helmet 1 week a month each. Finally, Zatara gets a little bit of his own life back, and Khalid takes the first shift. The episode leaves us with a dark scene. Mary, crying in the street and feeling betrayed, hears a sinister voice manipulating her. She gives in, whispers Shazam, and calls down a bolt of corrupted magic. Dealing with grief is never easy, and Calder chose the classic method, burying his head in his work. At the memorial, he stares at Connor's hologram but refuses to take time to process the loss. By the next day, he's already in Poseidonis for a political conference that has headache written all over it. The meeting brings together leaders from various Atlantean city-states, and the tension is palpable. Complaints about surface pollution, territory theft, and lack of resources fly across the table. Calvin Durham drops some uncomfortable truths about the inequality between regions, showing that underwater diplomacy is hanging by a thread. And speaking of Connor, he's not dead. At least, not the way we thought. Superboy wakes up in a bizarre, foggy dimension, unable to communicate with Megan. He meets an unconscious, intangible girl he dubs Ghosty, proving his knack for naming things is still terrible. He soon realizes that in this place, the rules are like the Matrix. He can only touch things if he truly believes he can. Meanwhile, in Happy Harbor, Violet has a heartfelt conversation with Madea about Islam, exploring the meaning of the hijab and faith. It's a quiet moment of self-discovery that culminates in Violet coming to terms with their own non-binary identity, adopting new pronouns, and finally finding comfort in their own skin. The peace doesn't last. In Poseidonis, the conference is brutally interrupted by an explosion. Ocean Master decides to crash the party, firing energy blasts and taking down the entire royal guard. Neither Kaldur, King Orin, nor Mara can stop him. Just when it seems the villain is going to wipe the floor with them, a hooded stranger appears out of nowhere. He blocks the attack, overpowers Ocean Master with overwhelming magic, and simply swims away, leaving everyone confused and a villain with a crushed ego. While Ocean Master licks his wounds, Superman gets an unexpected visit at a diner. Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy from the Legion of superheroes drop a bombshell. They time traveled to prevent Superboy's death, failed on Mars, and now need Clark himself to take Connor's place in a crucial event exactly 10 years from now. The timeline is a mess, but they can't give future spoilers. Over in the weird dimension, Connor is still carrying Ghosty, but things get worse when a giant monster starts hunting him. Every time Connor gets angry, the beast attacks harder. He figures out the creature feeds on his rage. To save himself, Connor closes his eyes and forces himself to think about fixing bikes in the garage with Megan and their pets. The trick works, the anger fades, and the monster walks right past him. Back in Atlantis, rumors about the hooded stranger are running wild. Mera cites an old prophecy about the true king, but Orin is skeptical. The debate is cut short when a massive pillar of deadly red water and fire erupts near Poseidonis, a little parting gift left by Child in the last magical clash. Mera tries to contain the disaster, but the energy is colossal. Then the unthinkable happens. Ocean Master shows up to help. After all, ruling a dead ocean is no fun. The joint effort still isn't enough until the hooded stranger returns. With his added magic, the pillar is extinguished.
The stranger comes from out our past to quell the Triton's threat at last.
Immediately, Orm does what he does best and betrays everyone, firing at Mera, but the stranger blocks it, disarms the villain, and leaves the door wide open for Orin to knock his half-brother out cold with a well-placed punch. The moment of truth arrives. The stranger refuses the glory but ends up lowering his hood. He is Arian, the first Lord of Atlantis. The crowd goes wild, the prophecy seems real, and Atlantean politics have just been turned upside down. Far from there, the Legion of Superheroes knocks on Bart Allen's door, proving that the job of saving the future never stops. Megan is back on Earth, trying to move forward with her family's support, but the same can't be said for Beast Boy. Gar is spiraling into a heavy depression, completely isolated. Megan attempts an honest conversation, but he gets defensive and denies having any problems. The solution? A full-blown intervention with the outsiders. They lay out everything he's done for the team, but Gar, in peak denial mode, brutally shuts everyone down. Knowing her brother, Megan plays her final card. Either he attends the League's mandatory annual therapy with Black Canary, or he's done being a hero. Underwater, the political scene is boiling. Arian, the supposed ancestral king, undergoes a battery of tests in Atlantis. The magic is real and the DNA matches Vandal Savage's bloodline, but Orin isn't buying this miraculous return, especially with the Ocean Master clone imprisoned right around the same time. To prove it, Orin tasks Calder with leading a stealth team into the deep ruins of Zebel. The goal is to find Arian's original crown before chaos ensues, and of course Lagan joins the mission, completely ignoring the minor detail that his wife is about to give birth. Meanwhile, in that bizarre dimension, Connor keeps jumping from rock to rock carrying Phantom Girl. He's clearly at the edge of his sanity, bombarded by hallucinations of Megan and Wally West. Wally, by the way, drops some hard truths. They aren't in heaven or hell, but in some sort of purgatory where the only option is to keep walking. The psychological toll begins to show when Connor has a disturbing vision of Match snapping Superman's neck, waking up to find his own hands stained with blood. Orin hasn't bought into the new Ocean Master's act and asks Megan to enter the prisoner's mind. Inside, she stumbles upon Simon's psychic fingerprints and extracts the missing truth. Vandal Savage rigged the whole board. The so-called Arian, acclaimed by the people, is actually a clone with the original Ocean Master's memories, trained in magic, and perfectly positioned to steal Atlantis once and for all. A long-term scheme worthy of the villain. But while Savage manipulates the pieces, Caldor's team deals with giant monsters in the deep-sea ruins. After surviving an attack by a colossal crab and riding a blind, raging leviathan, they finally unearth Arian's ancestral crown. On the surface, popular pressure wins out. The delegates cave and vote to crown Arian as the High King. He takes the relic, gives the classic reluctant leader speech, and places the crown on his head. What he failed to calculate is that the Lords of Order are watching. In a matter of seconds, divine magic punishes the fraud and disintegrates the clone in front of the entire nation. Basically, the crown did its own quality control. With the artifact drained and the coup exposed, Orin refuses the throne once again, passing the mantle to the one who truly fits the prophecy, Mera. Acclaimed by the crowd, she becomes the new High Queen. Duty fulfilled, Calder decides to take a well-deserved leave of absence, while Orin plans his return to the Justice League. In the Forgotten Dimension, Connor's mind is collapsing. In the middle of nowhere, a yellow school bus flies by and vanishes. Because of course, that would happen in purgatory. Broken by exhaustion and guilt, he hears a hallucination of Lex Luthor whispering his old mind control trigger word, Red Sun. Civilian life takes its toll, and Rocket is feeling it firsthand. She is in utter denial about her son's autism diagnosis, dodging school meetings and running from responsibility by focusing 100% on hero work. Her current destination is New Genesis, where she, veteran Jay Garrick, and Forager arrive for a diplomatic summit between the Justice League and the New Gods. Right off the bat, the welcoming committee features Orion, the infamous Dog of War, who doesn't have a diplomatic bone in his body.
And their son, Orion, Dog of War.
Dog of War?
The trip quickly goes off the rails when a bug infiltrates a vault and steals an obsolete and lethal Radion cell. Orion flips out and goes on the hunt, but the chase reveals the warrior's Achilles heel. He has a paralyzing fear of enclosed spaces. Far away, on Apokolips, the machinery of evil grinds on. Ma'alefa'ak continues hunting and handing over rebels to the re-education center. His work pleases Darkseid, who rewards him with a new partner. From within, an invisible time sphere emerges Lor-Zod. By all accounts, messing with the timeline has become the villain's favorite sport. Back on New Genesis, the stolen artifact ends up in the hands of curious grubs in the bug hive. The device begins to malfunction, firing energy blasts. Amidst the panic, Orion completely loses control and attacks the grubs in a blind fury. Rocket acts fast and traps him in a force bubble, which only worsens his claustrophobic despair. When the dust settles and the cell discharges, Rocket uncovers the root of Orion's problem, the destructive rage inherited from his biological father, Darkseid. Meanwhile, the isolated dimension gets a familiar name, the Phantom Zone. The Lex Luthor hallucinations keep poisoning Connor's mind until someone in the flesh appears. The mysterious man warns Superboy about the symptoms of zone sickness and with eerie calmness introduces himself, General Dru-Zod. Over in the Garrick's backyard, Bart Allen finally gets tired of fixing the bioship blindly. He crosses his arms and does what any of us would do in this situation. He takes the ship hostage. Either the time travelers explain what the hell is going on, or nobody takes off. Left with no choice, Saturn Girl spills the truth. It all revolves around Lor-Zod, son of the infamous General Zod. It turns out Krypton used the Phantom Zone as a maximum security prison, like an interdimensional Alcatraz. And when the planet exploded, the prisoners were left there, rotting for eternity. Lor-Zod was born inside, and when he was finally released in the future, he developed a deadly hatred for the Legion of Superheroes. Since Superboy was the historical inspiration for the group's creation, the villain's plan was simple and brutal: travel back in time and kill Connor, wiping the Legion out of existence. While the past is laid bare, Lor-Zod himself is hiding out of temporal sync with Ma'alefa'ak and Mantis, scheming to steal the Phantom Zone projector from Metron's vault and free his parents early. Far away in space, Kilowog bumps into an old friend, Razor. The guy is so deeply depressed that his blue power ring of hope has stopped working. He goes to Metron to get his old red power ring of rage back, gets a manipulative lecture, and snaps. But after accidentally almost crushing some civilians and deciding to save them at the last second, the blue ring realizes he's not entirely lost. Now the madman is a red and blue lantern simultaneously. Balance is everything. On New Genesis, Rocket tries not to freak out over the peace treaty bureaucracy while remotely dealing with her son's autism diagnosis. In the end, Bart gets his scoop and hands over the repaired ship. The temporal manhunt is on. Lor-Zod's squad finally breaks into Metron's Infinity Vault in search of the Phantom Zone projector, but the security system isn't a simple password. It's a baby sun-eater. When Metron himself shows up, the villains waste no time. They ambush the immortal god and strap him to a torture machine to extract the device's location. Under pressure, Metron spills the beans, but also unleashes the devouring beast on them before making a run for it. Even choking on radiation, Mantis manages to grab the projector, and they escape through time. On Earth, Garfield walks into Black Canary's office thinking he's going to speedrun therapy. He tries to give short, canned answers just to get cleared and return to leading the Outsiders. But Black Canary is no amateur. She ditches the clipboard and starts pressing exactly where it hurts. Connor, Brion, Wally, Gar's own mother. Black Canary forces the kid to face the fact that he blames himself for all these deaths. The weight is unbearable. The leader mask drops, the tears come, and he finally admits out loud that he needs help. It's heartbreaking. And if Beast Boy's mental state is bad, Superboy's is in ruins. Trapped in the Phantom Zone, his mind eroding from the bizarre environment, he becomes an easy target for General Zod. Zod acts like he owns the place, showing off his followers and offering Connor a spot in the House of Zod. Confused, sick, and with his memories completely fragmented, the Superman clone stops fighting. He bows his head and kneels before the dictator. The hero has surrendered. Zatanna's magic squad performs a heavy ritual to summon Superboy's spirit, and nothing. Not a single response from the spiritual veil. Since magic doesn't fail for no reason, it dawns on them Connor isn't dead. And he really isn't. The problem is that Lord Zod is about to bring even more people into the land of the living. The villain arrives on New Genesis with a drained Phantom Zone projector and decides to use a glowing lake as a power outlet. There's just one detail nobody noticed. The lake is the mouth of a dormant Promethean giant. Metron sounds the alarm, and a task force of heroes and gods steps in, turning the place into a war zone. Amidst the chaos, Ma'alefa'ak traps Rocket in a mental nightmare, forcing her to deal with her extreme prejudice against Orion. The heroine finally understands that Orion's fury doesn't make him a monster, but someone who fights his own demons every single day just to hold it together. With this newfound empathy, the psychic trance is broken. But the giant wakes up, firing a brutal energy beam capable of frying the entire planet. That's when Toma Ray shines. Determined not to let another world be destroyed on his watch, as happened with Krypton, the Green Lantern creates an energy tunnel to deflect the beam into space. Lord Zod seizes the distraction and melts Toma Ray's chest with his heat vision. The hero falls but holds the construct steady until the very last second, dying with a smile of fulfilled duty. As his legacy, his ring chooses the female forager as its new guardian. Inside the zone, the projector powers up and locks onto Connor's DNA, nearly pulling him back. However, the legion of superheroes comes in blasting and blows up the machinery before the extraction is complete. Furious, Lord Zod boards the bioship, takes Saturn Girl hostage, and flees into space. The intergalactic peace treaty is finally finalized. Rocket returns to Earth and hugs her son, accepting that his needs are just a part of who he is. And Zatanna, with confirmation that Connor survived, decides she doesn't need more magic. She needs a detective. Meanwhile, Kid Flash actually tries to play the hero and snatch a few inhibitor collars at super speed, but Lore tracks his movement and fries them all with his heat vision. With the crew's lives in the villain's crosshairs, the ship has no choice but to stand down and obey his orders. Far away, Dick Grayson is undercover at a circus, doing what he does best: absurd Cirque du Soleil-style acrobatics. But Zatanna isn't there to watch the show. She needs a detective to find Superboy. Dick is skeptical but agrees to investigate, and they soon discover that Kid Flash is missing too. The investigation turns into pure urban espionage. They corner Clark Kent in a diner, but Superman plays hardball and doesn't reveal much about Bart's time-traveling friends. When Tigress and Artemis discover that inhibitor collars and a space belt are missing, everything points to an off-world mission. To confirm it, they contact Rocket and probe her memories. Zatanna's magic doesn't fail. Connor is truly alive and trapped in the Phantom Zone. The problem is that Superboy himself is there right now, chatting with General Zod and handing him on a silver platter the fact that Earth has a yellow sun perfect for giving Kryptonians powers. It's the kind of information you definitely shouldn't give to the villain of the story. To try and open the zone, Zatanna decides to confront Clarion at the Tower of Fate. Terrible idea. The Lord of Chaos simply beats down the whole team using clones and leaves out of sheer pity, refusing to help. Plan A completely tanks. Meanwhile, on the hijacked bioship, Lord Zod forces Bart to run on the cosmic treadmill to power their trip. Out of magical options, Zatanna's Plan B requires something very specific: finding a school bus abandoned 10 years ago. It is what it is.
If you can track down a 10-year-old school bus.
And speaking of the school bus, finding it is actually easy. The problem is that the vehicle has been crushed into a metal cube at a junkyard. While the team tries to sort that out, things are souring fast back in Markovia. Prince Brion has fully embraced the role of king, promising to protect young Metas fleeing persecution. Except Counselor Bazovi is twisting his mind behind the scenes, manipulating Brion into turning the country into a full-blown superpowered militia. It's terrifying to see Brion parroting the man's words without even realizing he's become become a puppet. At least at college, things seem more normal, until Harper Row confesses she has romantic feelings for Violet, leaving her completely stunned. During group therapy, Beast Boy reports on his progress with an emotional support dog, but Violet is still hurting from Brion's coldness and decides to travel to Markovia to face him. Their conversation is heavy, filled with resentment over the coup d'etat, and Brion, blinded by his own defensiveness, practically kicks her out of the palace. In the Phantom Zone, Phantom Girl tries to save Superboy from himself. She explains that she tried to phase them out of the explosion on Mars, but they ended up trapped in this dimension by accident. But Zod's brainwashing was too strong. Not only does Connor refuse her help, but he also alerts the villains that she's awake. Phantom Girl barely manages to escape back to Mars, burning in agony in the process. Back at the junkyard, Zatanna resorts to bizarre magic and summons Trogowogs, gremlins known for taking things apart, but who also know how to fix them. The price to rebuild the bus? An SUV and a bag of freeze-dried chicken snacks. A bargain! With the bus reassembled, the team puts on their space belts. Zatanna opens a portal on the vehicle's door, and they step straight into the void. Diving into the Phantom Zone on a school bus doesn't guarantee a friendly reception. Nightwing and his team find Superboy, but the guy is so mentally broken, he thinks his friends are delusions created by the dimension. To make matters worse, General Zod sprouts from the ground with his army. The heroes try to fight back, but their tech and magical gadgets are practically useless there. Connor, proving his blind loyalty to the general, attacks Kaldor himself. Zod realizes he's trapped for eternity since Krypton no longer exists, and the team only manages to escape when Zatanna casts an illusion spell. Up above, at the Watchtower, the situation finally gets some direction. Miss Martian makes contact with the Kaiser Thrall and discovers that the machine hosts the mind of Danny, an 11-year-old meta-human boy abducted by Apocalypse, and he provides the key. The boy can track the exact frequency of the Phantom Zone. Soon after, Phantom Girl appears at the Watchtower with Prince Jem, confirming Connor's whole tragedy. Orion suggests a clever plan, opening the rescue portal on Trombus, a planet with a red sun. That way, if the Kryptonian criminals try to escape, they are instantly depowered. But remember Ma'alefa'ak? The Martian steals a Legion ring, takes the form of Chameleon Boy, and intercepts the communications, uncovering the whole Red Sun plan. When the rescue team arrives on Trombus and Danny opens the portal, Magon tries to pull Connor out telepathically, but he refuses. Before anyone can enter the zone to pull him out by force, Ma'alefa'ak and Lorzod show up. The Martian takes control of the Kaiser Thrall and disintegrates the rescue team in the blink of an eye. The path is clear. Zod, Ursa, and Fiora step through the portal onto Trombus, dragging a completely exhausted Superboy with them. Lorzod welcomes his parents in Kryptonian. The temporal nightmare they tried to prevent just materialized. He recites the secret motto of the House of Zod while dragging an unconscious Kid Flash like a school backpack. He explains that he is their son from the future, here to ensure the family's freedom, and promises nothing short of the entire galaxy. The plan is simple and lethal. Go to a planet with a yellow sun, gain godlike powers, and conquer everything. Zod immediately orders Fiora back to the Phantom Zone to rally the army. Meanwhile, Zatanna's team, hidden by magic, watches the nightmare unfold and braces for the worst. The Zod family decides that the Fortress of Solitude is the best place to set up camp, bringing along a Superboy still suffering the effects of heavy brainwashing. Basking in the yellow sun, Zod and Ursa begin to absorb the power. Nightwing attempts a heroic ambush and destroys the solar energy pods, but Lorzod reacts with absolute fury. He hurls giant ice statues at Dick. The impact is brutal, crushing the hero. Ursa, furious at having her empowerment process interrupted, ends up attracting the mystical eye of Ekron, which chooses her as its new master, the Emerald Empress. Inside the Phantom Zone, Kaldur's squad uses the narrow space of the boom tube to hold off the Kryptonian invasion, essentially recreating the Battle of Thermopylae. Faora tries to advance, ranting about her years in prison, but Kaldor has zero patience for frustrated villains. With a water whip, he throws her straight into the jaws of a zone creature. In the real world, the bioship attempts a rescue, but the Emerald Empress shoots it down in the blink of an eye. Superman ends up on his knees, poisoned by kryptonite, while Zod makes a global broadcast announcing that Earth now now belongs to Krypton. And to crown his dictator speech, he orders the corrupted Superboy to snap his own brother's neck. In the middle of Metropolis, Superboy restrains the poisoned Superman, ready for the kill. Zod monologues to the planet, but the use of the word family short-circuits Connor's programming. He remembers Clark welcoming him into the League, his adoptive parents, holding his nephew in his arms. He simply can't bring himself to kill the only family he's ever known. Meanwhile, we find out Nightwing is very much alive. He literally slowed his own heartbeat to fake his death, a classic trick that would make Batman proud. M'gann also reveals she projected a telepathic illusion to make the Emerald Empress think she had killed the entire ship's crew. They are all in one piece and furious. The turning point hits when Kid Flash snatches the kryptonite right out of Zod's hand, and Zatanna's invisible bus runs Lor-Zod over with no brakes. From then on, Metropolis turns into a war zone. M'gann dives into Superboy's mind, shatters the barrier imposed by the villain, and restores all of her fiancé's memories. The real Connor is back. The final battle is a spectacle of justified vengeance. M'gann ruthlessly mind-wipes the Emerald Empress. Danny, with telepathic backup, kicks Malefak out of his own head. The House of El brothers, finally working together, hand out beatdowns to the Zods with perfect synchronization. The team opens a boom tube to the Phantom Zone and starts tossing the villains back into the hole they crawled out of. Ursa is rescued by the Eye of Ekron and escapes, while Lor-Zod tries to flee by stealing the Time Sphere. What he didn't know is that the vehicle had been rigged by Metron. Lor is thrown into the past. At the exact millisecond the gene bomb detonates, turning instantly to dust. End of the line for his temporal ambitions. With the timeline saved, the Legion returns to the future. We finally get a breather with Connor and M'gann's backyard wedding. It's emotional and super quick, because the officiant knows superheroes don't have much free time before the next attack. And he was right. Behind the scenes, Vandal Savage has emptied the Phantom Zone, stealing all the Kryptonians for his army. To make matters worse, Darkseid smiles on Apocalypse as he unveils his new generation of Furies, Black Mary and none other than Supergirl.
This is Kara Zor-El, the Supergirl.